All right, Jim.
Hey, it is live time here on twitch.tv/recpoker. I'm so excited to be joined by Taylor Moss here in the booth. We're getting started on week 3 of MaREC Madness. That's right, folks. It's the annual Rec Poker tradition, MaREC Madness. We're going to be joined by Chris Fox Wallace in the booth shortly. That is WSOP bracelet winner, Chris Fox Wallace, by the record. But I've got Taylor here to warm us up. If you don't know what MaREC Madness is all about, excuse me, it is our version of March Madness. Taylor is the producer. This is his brainchild. Taylor puts all the magic together on MaREC Madness every year, and so we're going to start tonight's broadcast just kind of chatting a little bit about what MaREC Madness is all about and what it's like to be sitting in the producer chair and flipping switches and making things great. Isn't that right, Taylor?
Yeah, it's not all that exciting, so we'll probably just talk about the bracket instead. Because I mean, I'm just here, running stuff behind the scenes, making sure stuff runs correctly, having it not run correctly, and just showing off that we're just a bunch of guys having fun, trying to put some stuff together. But I also can't take full credit for MaREC Madness either. I think it was kind of like some back and forth things, but essentially what it came down to is we started talking about it, and I was like, hey, like this would be something great that if like we put together and then we ran it on Twitch, it'd be something cool that people would be interested in watching. So we started off first year with 8 people, but last year and this year we've expanded the bracket to 16 people playing in a heads-up tournament, similar to March Madness that's going on right now with basketball, but a heads-up poker match. There's going to be one winner, and they're going to advance, and we're going to play it down until we have just one person left, and we're going to crown them the MaREC Madness champion for 2023. So we've already thinned the field in half. We've gone from 16 to 8. We're going to have those 8 players play tonight. We're going to have 4 matchups, and we're going to thin it down to 4. So after this week, we're going to have 4 people left. Next week, we'll play out the final 4 matchups. And then 2 weeks from tonight, the best of 3 championship, where we're going to have those final 2 contestants face off in a best of 3 match to crown this year's champion. All fun. It's been a ton of fun throughout the years. We've created some videos. I know Chris has done some a great job with the videos he's created. But we're going to get to see him play tonight too. So we'll see if his video skills and his play skills are coinciding or if they're a little bit different. But it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm always excited for this. It's a ton of work to put into it, but just such a great tournament for us to put together.
And Taylor knows what it's like on both sides of the desk, as they say, because like with so many things here at Rec Poker, Taylor was the inaugural champion of MaREC Madness. Let it never not be said. Back in 2021, Taylor Moss, the one and only Gopher Boy TJM, rode his talent and luck and timing right into the crown, becoming the inaugural champion. And then last year, John Somsky, if you're a fan of Rec Poker, you know who John Somsky is. He was the champion last year, but he was upset by the 16 seed, the one and only Chris Jones, who is typing some pretty funny things into the chat here in Twitch right now, if you're watching live. And
he likes to call out that it was a tiny field the first year, as if I didn't beat him in that tiny field to become the champion. It's like he's trying to diminish something that he could have directly affected. So I mean, I don't know what to do to appease him.
I do like his point, though, that March Madness is everyone else's version of MaREC Madness. That's correct,
yeah.
Chris. Sorry, I flubbed that one. You nailed it, though, buddy. That could not be more correct. So tonight we're going to see, like we talked about, Chris Jones here, 555. In our very first match, he's going to be taking on Kim Pet Vet Kilroy. And this is going to be a really cool match. Chris and Kim are both members of the Wrecking Crew. Chris is also the director of membership content here at Rec.Poker. He drives a lot of the learning material that we put together every month. He sets the theme of the month and produces a lot of the videos. He also helps with a ton of the sort of behind the scenes work that goes on in the Rec Poker community. So Chris is extremely involved and an easy guy to cheer for. Kim Kilroy is also a Wrecking Crew member. She runs a monthly hand history review group here at Rec Poker, and she's just a freaking technician. This is my favorite expression to describe Kim. She's very studied, she's very learned, she's very experienced. She's got great results on Hendon Mob. She knows her ranges, she knows her sizes, she knows when to take advantage of people. We're really gonna, I think we're gonna see some fantastic poker played in the first match here and in all our matches. But I have to just say I'm really looking forward to this one. This is gonna be quite the battle, and I am prepared. I was telling you before we went live, Taylor, we've got 4 matches tonight, and so I made sure to get 4 cans of Grolsch so that we can be in sync.
You are always prepared, Jim.
Yeah, let no one say
yeah,
no one say that I am not prepared. So
yeah, so
we're getting started here, and we're in for some fun.
We're gonna have 4 very quick matches, and it's gonna hit you really quick when you down those 4 beers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm not promising to finish one by the end of every match, because some of these can go by pretty quickly. But I'm gonna try and maintain that average for the duration of the show. So I'm giving myself a little head start by enjoying the first one before we really blow the whistle, you know.
Yeah, no, but you definitely have a point here. Like, I was looking at these matchups, and I think the theme of it, at least for the matchups that I saw, there are 5 people in the second round here that got their first MaREC Madness win this year. So we have 5 people that have never made it to the second round before, but not in the first matchup. This first matchup is 2 semifinalists from last year. And believe it or not, 3 of the final 4 of last year's tournament are still alive in the second round here. So Chris and Kim were both final 4 contestants last year. And Keith Brandt, the ultimate second place finisher, is also still alive here. So we've got
Keith,
a strong repeat from last year, and then 5 new people in with them in the second round. So that's kind of the theme that I see playing out here. And the first matchup is not a repeat of a matchup because they didn't play to each other. They both lost in the semifinals, but both of them on their redemption tour, trying to get back to the semifinals.
I love it. So I mentioned we'll start off with Kim Kilroy and Chris Jones. The second match we've got queued up tonight is Michael Babker versus Kathy Chang. And Michael Babker, I should point out, has been a huge help here at Rec Poker since the winter. He's really stepped in to help sort of be our technical director, really. He's just one of those great premium members here at Rec Poker that loves to help out and contribute. And so I got to shout Michael out for his support and his help, because it's made a huge difference to what we're doing here. We need all the help we can get. And
rumor has it that like he's put in a ton of hours and really helped out stuff just to get a spot in MaREC Madness, just to like get the foot in the door. He has not studied to try and get better heads up. No, he's just tried to like volunteer and get on Jim's good side to get into the field.
Well, I will say, Rec Poker, much like the poker world, there's room for you here. This is something that everyone here on the Wrecking Crew, I mean, I think that this is actually a completely literally true statement. Everyone here on the Wrecking Crew has sort of started by getting more involved with Rec Poker and by sort of pitching in, finding an area that they can help with. And it's become this platform for recreational players to really take the next step. And now they're leading study groups and coaching new players and that kind of thing. It's one of the things I love about Rec Poker. And like I say, we talk about this with Kevin Mathers and other characters like him all the time. There's room for you in the poker world. If you have an area of excellence or something that you're really passionate about, just start doing it. Start doing it. Like Roger Schutte, another fantastic premium member who helps us put our post-production stuff for the podcast together twice a week. He's just a great guy. He just wants to help. He wants to leave his mark, and it's fantastic having him on the.
Daddy,
here at Rec Poker. So you
Daddy.
often Taylor isn't able to join us for some of these events because he has a family at home, and sometimes when we're recording these, it has to it happens to correspond with bedtime, and he has other plans. So,
Yeah, sorry, I
what
was able to mute the conversation for everyone on the stream, but not for you, Jim. So you got to hear it.
I was wondering about that. That's oh, that's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
we occasionally get a little cameo from one of Taylor's daughters here, and
Uh,
I like Chris's comment. Best guest commentator ever. Yeah, so far, I think. No,
Probably the most knowledgeable out of the three of us.
without a doubt, without a doubt. So,
Uh,
oh yeah, so Michael Babker is going to be taking on Kathy Chang
mhm,
in the second match tonight. Kathy is a longtime Rec Poker member and a mixed game enthusiast. I know she
mhm.
moved to Vegas relatively recently and is just chopping it up down there in the mixed games. She won her way into
Yeah, she
MaREC
took the
Madness, I think.
opposite approach of Babker. Babker
Yeah.
worked his way in. Kathy won her way in. She won, I believe it was June last year. We do this every 3 months. So March is this tournament, but 3 months from now in June, we'll do a heads up tournament for Rec Poker members. It's third Saturday of the month. It's a heads up
Third
tournament.
Saturday.
If you win, you've got a spot in next year's MaREC Madness. We'll do another one in September and another one in December, and those three players will win their way in. So Kathy is one that won her way in.
That's awesome. I love that we do those qualifiers. Another big shout out to John Somsky, who runs so many amazing home games here in the Play Money Home Games Club, including our quarterly qualifiers for MaREC Madness. Then match three, we've got some more Wrecking Crew on Wrecking Crew Violence. It's going to be Joe Coolis, who goes by Elvita, or Joe Cool PhD, versus Keith Monkey System Brandt. So these are two Wrecking Crew members who both lead a monthly study group here at Rec Poker. Keith has been running Monkey's off-table tools for quite a while now, and he's great with Range Trainer Pro, advanced poker training. Another one of our members who is just extremely studied, spends a lot of time going through the simulations, and an excellent poker player and a great tutor as well. Joe has started his Joe Cool PhD's Poker Psyops, and he's going to be talking about a wide variety of subjects. He is himself a board certified psychologist, and he is going to be talking about aspects of not only the mental game and performance, but also perspective, the way that brains work. And he's got a lot of exciting things lined up for his monthly study group and his set of videos that are going to start coming out here at Rec Poker. And I'll say, if you want to find out more about Wrecking Crew members, I'd encourage folks just go to rec.poker/crew. You can see a photo of everybody there, their email address or contact information, and you can also click on their Wrecking Crew page and find out all sorts of information about them. If you want to practice, you could go to rec.poker/Taylor Moss right now and learn all about Taylor and what he's got going on. It's not just MaREC Madness. Taylor is quite an accomplished poker player himself, and he's also one of our coaching members. If you go to the shop here, there's lots of places, lots of people you can work with if you're trying to take the next step as a poker player. I'd heartily recommend Taylor among all the other Wrecking Crew members there. So do go check that out. Our final match, Charles B. Chip Allen versus Eric Binkley Gin. This is going to be a tough one too. So Charles is a lawyer by trade, one of our premium members, and a really fun guy. He is an active participant in our Tuesday night online play-in hangs, and he's also there for some of our other study groups that we put on from time to time. Eric Gin is another Wrecking Crew member, and Eric runs one of the most interesting weekly sessions that we do. It's on hold for March while MaREC Madness takes its place on Thursday nights. But starting up again in April, it's Eric's Play, Explain, and Learn, where our premium members play in a simulated cash game environment on Poker Now, which is the same platform you're going to see our members playing on tonight. It's a fantastic free poker playing platform that lets you share your video and audio and have fun with your friends while you're playing. Eric runs his Play, Explain, and Learn, or Peel, similarly to, although we started it, Solve for Wise, Poker Out Loud. So everyone plays their hand. Eric's able to record the screen with cards up, like we'll be doing tonight. And you take turns explaining your action when it's your turn. You mute and unmute the rest of the table. So everyone gets to hear what each person was thinking at the time they were playing their hand. And only Eric can actually control it, of course. But once he releases those videos, you get to see the whole thing play through, and it's very interesting. So I think that's one of the best ways people can learn along with others here at Rec Poker, and that happens every Thursday night starting again in April. So it's quite a series of matches, Taylor. Any predictions on your end? Is there? I know we did some seeding for this, but it was really randomized after John random, got the 1 seed. So,
yeah, I think it's tough to predict a lot of these. Chris versus Kim is a really solid matchup. I think a lot of that is just going to come down to card distribution. Who gets the right hands at the right spot. If I have to pick, I'm going to go Kim. But like I said, I think it's really close. Babker versus Kathy. 2 solid players, but not players that I've played with a whole lot. I'm going to side with Kathy there, so we can have a girl versus girl semifinal. I think that would be pretty cool. Then on the other side, Keith versus Joe. Joe beat me in the first match. I'm looking for some revenge. I'm going to pick Keith to knock him out to avenge me. Also, last year, how the bracket played out was I lost to the person that 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 won, or whatever it played out. So maybe that'll play out again here, where everyone that beats me ends up losing like the next round and stuff like that. So let's see if we can't keep that through. And then B-Chip versus Binkley, both solid players. I'm gonna side with Binkley on this one. I think. Binkley last year, the one spot that resonates the most with me is he pulled off a huge bluff last year in one of his matchups. I think it was on the river, and he checked opponent bet, and he turned like ace high into like a check raise on the river. Like, who does that? And got his opponent to fold a pretty decent hand. So it was like, oh, beautiful. So I'm hoping for more of that magic. We need him to stay alive in the matchups for more likelihood of being able to pull off that big bluff. So those are my predictions.
I love it. And I think Chris Fox Wallace is going to be joining us any minute here. And once he does,
we'll have a bit of technical shifting whenever he joins. So if everyone would just bear with me for a second while I do stuff on my side. But once Chris joins, I'm going to just get out of here. We'll have you and Chris kind of run the show from there. But for those watching the stream, don't mind the little bit of inconsistencies that we have as we get stuff set up and reconfigured correctly for all the matchups.
It's going to be great. I only wish you could stick around, but I know you're going to be busy, as I say, flipping switches, moving those little sliding things up boards, zooming, panning, altering scenes, that kind of thing. The life of a producer is no easy thing here at Rec Poker.
Yeah, I've got like 3 phones here, and it's just like to make sure everyone is, coordinating stuff the right way and stuff is staying intact. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Jones. We're gonna have dueling Chris's tonight because Chris Fox Wallace. I might just call him Fox for clarity. Chris Jones, who is the producing co-host for the podcast, knows a thing or two about flipping switches in the background as well. And he just wants to point out in the chat here as well. He's coming in 16 seed, coming in with a chip on his shoulder, and he's pretty relieved now that Somsky's goons have been taken out of the equation. I know those goons were making everybody sweat there, Chris, and I'm glad you were able to elude them because we don't need that kind of.
I think I'm one of the goons, by the way.
One of the Somsky's goons,
like passenger seat in Somsky's car, yelling "Fold pocket fives, fold pre."
I can see that. I can really see that. I think you're right. Taylor. I mean, yeah, you're probably. I don't know if that's fair to say. you do kind of play the villain around here.
Hmm.
I don't know if I don't know if it's because you're so skilled at the game of poker, if it's because you just aren't around as much and we gang up on you in your absence. Is it just a flawed personality trait? What's your take on that? Why are you the villain so often, Taylor?
I'm gonna actually go with the last one, flawed personality trait, because it's a constant thing in a lot of different aspects of my life, believe it or not. So, not this is not new here, but I just embrace it. So it's all good. I'll take the villain role. It's part of the reason why I embrace the Grinch on my stuff. But
Yes. That's
yeah,
true. I should have meant like, yeah, anyone who takes the Grinch and makes that part of their identity, they're no stranger to the villain role. So that makes perfect sense to me. And I see we're just getting joined here by the man himself, Chris Fox Wallace.
Hello,
So,
yeah.
folks. I'm
hey,
pulling up
did you
YouTube
get a
on my other
haircut?
computer right now. I'll
Oh
have you
yeah,
know,
right on.
I wolfed down a wonderful steak and left some of it downstairs to get here. So,
Wow, that is dedication. And if people don't, so Chris Fox Wallace, welcome here to the show. If folks don't know who Chris Fox Wallace is, climb out from under that rock you've been living under for the last little while. But Chris has been a friend of the Rec Poker community for a really long time. He's a WSOP bracelet winner. He's a multiply published author in the world of poker and beyond. Chris, I know Short Stack Ninja is a great, fantastic book that we've done as a book study subject here at Rec Poker. But you're also getting started with horse poker with the Mizrahi brothers. Where can people find that kind of stuff? And
they're all on Amazon. That's the easiest place to get them. And I am in a
wow,
beautiful setting. Look at that.
that's amazing. Are
Yeah,
you still
really.
down in? You said you were down in Arizona, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Scottsdale. Yeah, doing a bunch of photography for the Meekum car auction people.
Oh, amazing. Well, making it
Yeah,
look good. I
I
always
hope so.
every time we do our book study with Rob Washam, we're always complaining about how cold and snowy it is up here. He lives down there in Bullhead City, and he always
Oh,
just
very nice.
leans in with the, "Oh yeah, it was down to 70 degrees today," and we all have a good cry for him, and we play the world's smallest violin. So I'm glad you're able to enjoy some nice weather down there, Fox.
Yeah, we're here with a lot of people from Minnesota, so we've there've been many conversations about how we don't regret moving away from Minnesota for 1 minute.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Yeah, Chris Jones in the chat saying jealous. It's currently snowing here in Minnesota. So,
Oh,
um, yeah, yeah,
that's horrible.
not. It doesn't seem right, does it? It doesn't
I
seem right.
understand like how people ended up in Minnesota because like the wagons broke down because it was snowed and whatever. You couldn't get, but now there are like planes and buses, and you can just leave and never go back there. You don't have to be there anymore. Stop
But
doing
but
that to
now,
yourself.
but the people are so nice is the problem now. I mean, why would you go anywhere else when you can hang out with Minnesotans?
I'm in Phoenix hanging out with Minnesotans, and it's 70 degrees.
That's a good point. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
you find your people wherever you go.
So if folks, we're gonna have Fox with us here for the entire show, all four matches. And if you've got questions for him, feel free to type them into the Twitch chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that. You can also find him on Twitter at Fox Poker Fox. And Fox, one of the things we're going to be giving away a couple prizes here tonight, depending on the winning hand for a few of our members. Can you tell us, do you have a favorite card? Not even a favorite hand, but just one card that stands out to you in some way in a positive light? And can you share that with us if you do?
Uh, I I don't. I guess it would be. I guess if I had to pick one, it would be the 10 of clubs.
10 of clubs.
Because that was the last card when I won the bracelet. That was the
Oh,
note that gave me
nice.
the full house.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So
Good
that would
choice.
have to be it.
Yep.
It was super stressful sweat at the end because we both had very good starting hands, and I made 3 deuces on Fifth Street, and Randy Ole had aces, and he caught his third ace on Sixth Street.
Mm.
And I had them all in, and I thought I just could see my bracelet fading away.
Yep.
And then I filled up with another 10 on the river. And then I waited for him to sweat his 7th Street card, and it felt like he sweated it for half an hour. I'm sure it was 15 seconds, but if he just got so many outs to fill up there.
Yeah.
Um, and he didn't. And so then he looked, and finally he saw it, and he said, "You're good," and just mucked his cards, and
Wow.
it's that.
That was it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And in these heads-up games, Taylor was just talking about this, and we're about to get started here. But Taylor was just mentioning like how much card distribution matters, and you're playing every hand. You're playing really wide ranges. We'll get into a lot of that here over the course of the show, but it's a unique format for poker, and it's hard for anyone to have a huge edge because you really kind of the card distribution makes a big difference as well. So you can
really
really
does.
sweat those runouts. So I see some regular watchers are already they know the drill. For each match that we play, if you can guess the winning hand, type it into the chat here, and we'll be giving away a prize to anyone who guesses the winning hand in each match. And then we'll also be giving away a prize every time the 10 of clubs is present in the winning hand. We'll do a little draw at the end for that. So I think we're pretty much ready to get into this here. So I hope want to just shout out everyone in the chat here.
Week 3, match 1.
There we go. All right. And so Taylor's going to be producing. Chris, you and I can hear him, and the folks watching along can hear us. And it's going to be a lot of fun as we go. So why don't we start getting all queued up here? And we are in. It is the first match. At the top of your screen, you've got Kim Pet Vet Kilroy. And at the bottom, it is Chris 5x5 Jones. So we're starting off with 100 big blinds, Chris, which seems like nice and deep. There's not going to be any panic, any pressure. These players are going to have a lot of room to run. And we'll just kind of cover the action as we go here. Chris, at this depth, do you typically advise people to have a limping and an opening range from the small blind, or is it 100% open, or how do you like to approach that kind of thing?
I played a lot of heads up sit and goes for a living back in the day, a while ago, and I don't have a limping range to start, but occasionally opponent will convince me to have a limping range by 3-betting a lot. If your opponent is 3-betting a lot, then then frequently that means they're 3-betting too much. And so I will have a limping range to see how they respond to that. I'll start to play a little tighter from the button, and I'll start to 4-bet a lot more. And then you can use use that mistake that your opponent's making by 3-betting too much when he's out of position in all kinds of ways. But the only time I will have a limping range from the button is when somebody's 3-betting me like crazy when I'm opening. Because then if you limp and they open and they raise from there, they can't raise enough to force you off your hand when there's 100 big blinds. And when you get below 50 big blinds, you just really shouldn't have an open limping range. And then below 30, it's insanity. Below 30, you can never open limp.
And so you're really advocate for open raising, giving them a chance to fold, and then you just don't have as much back that you have to worry about that re-raising in the same way.
Yeah, well, the blinds you're stealing are so valuable when you're shorter stacked, and when you're deeper stacked, if you're open raising, then you're getting money in the pot and building bigger pots that you're usually going to win because you're in position. So even if they're defending too much, which is actually great, then you just get to play a ton of hands in position.
And I think this is another one of those spots where it just like our players right now, you end up playing with a really wide range of hands that you might not normally play. And so position matters a lot when you're going to be playing post flop with some of these kind of unusual holdings. You're not used to, players aren't used to having a pair of threes be good in a spot like this, for instance.
I want to know where the rest of this pot is.
Yeah.
There should be 18 big blinds in there.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm really interested in hearing about, the different betting lines and stuff that you look at when people are coming in post flop here. So I expect we'll get an open from Kim here because she's got that king blocker,
Sure.
and she knows how to
Yeah.
extract.
I'm opening around 90% or 85% of hands usually.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I open 100%, but I find that then people start to defend a lot more. And if
Mm.
I'm opening 90%, they see those occasional folds, and then they keep give me more credit for my raises. And so, and I'm giving up a very small edge in those opens for the worst hands, and I'm gaining edge in the other hands that I think is worthwhile against a typical opponent.
Yeah, they're gonna see you folding and kind of give you credit for folding maybe even more of your range than you're actually folding, and so playing a tighter range. I like
This
that.
looks like
That's
it's
a
going to
tough
be a
card.
bet.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're gonna see something here. And I guess Kim checks here. She's checking a lot out of position, I expect, but I'm sure we're going to see a bet from Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
And is this just a smooth call for Kim here, do you think?
I would. Yeah, I would. And then if I was Kim here, I think I'd probably have to lead. Your opponent's not going to bet into you again with the third spade and the overcard coming. So I would have to lead if I was Kim here, just to try to, and it would be a bet fold.
Hmm. Yeah, the bet fold, we talk about that from time to time. That's kind of an underutilized branch of the decision tree here for a lot of recreational players. They're not really comfortable putting chips in if they might not be ahead.
Yeah.
Um, but how important is it really to have that kind of bet folding mentality or that bet folding range when it comes to value
Yeah,
betting?
you have to have all the tools. The game's too tough these days. You
Yep.
got to have all the tools. And the bet fold, really where it's valuable is that you're able to then make a lot of very thin value bets. And thin value is where the money is made. Especially, cash players. I spent a lot of the last 5 years playing 2-5 no limit for a living at the Win, and value betting thin is the primary source of income in those
Hmm.
situations. The
Hmm.
difference between me and a guy who grinds it out and barely makes a profit is just that I value bet thin all the time. We're not bluffing more or anything like that. It's just that I'm getting those thin value bets in, and I get away with $150 thin value bet an hour, and there we are. There's the difference between me and the guys breaking even.
Yep. Well, I think you and a lot of other really smart players have said, that you can't just do what everyone else is doing. You got to be doing something different if you're going to profit from the game. So you got to have an edge, and thin value seems like a great place to find it. Now, I expect we'll get a bet from Chris here, turning top pair,
Would hope.
and Kim. Kim just has the gut shot there, so not surprised she lets it go. So I see 2.5 being an open sizing here for both these players at this stack depth. How do you think about open sizing, and how obviously stack depth is related to it, but do you have a simple rule or a way to kind of choose based on depth?
I usually, with 100 big blinds, I'm opening to 2.5 in a heads up match. And then I'll drop to 2.25 when we get to around 60 or 50 big blinds, and then I'll drop
Hmm.
to min raise when we get to 30 big blinds. We don't know for sure what the correct raise size is for every stack size and every blind level, but we know that it's a function of both effective stack size and blinds. And it's probably something like 1% of the effective stack plus two plus a min raise. It's probably something close to that in most situations.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I like that way of thinking about it.
So, I mean, that would make it a 3x raise with 100 big blinds and a 2.5x raise with 50 big blinds. And, that would be about where we find solvers um, like the raise sizes often.
That's very cool.
And when you're out of position, it's got to be then much, much bigger than that to open. The
Yes.
opens and three bets have got to be bigger than that. But when you're in position, those are about the right raise sizes.
Nice. So this one, just another one of those situations where the opening hands aren't very strong. I see Chris does have a mixed strategy where he'll limp some hands and open some hands. I think his theory is just it allows him to play more hands that he would otherwise not be able to. And Fox, you're saying, no, just open them.
Yeah,
Just
raise
open
them
them
up.
anyway.
Just
Yeah.
raise them up. If you're going to play 6-4, at least to have a shot at not having to show it down, raise it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. I love
But
it.
I know that there are some mixed strategies that work great. I don't use them because it's hard for me to come up with a proper mixed strategy that's balanced in a heads up situation raising from the button. You can't just be limping your weaker hands. You can't just be limping, the hands that you want to see a flop with and don't want to put a lot of money in with. Or someone like me, you'll start making it 6x every time you limp. And you can't limp your monsters only, because then you're giving it away. And most people aren't going to raise you often enough when you limp to make a limp re-raise worthwhile. So what is your limping versus raising range? When somebody has a mixed strategy in from the button like that, I just don't know what the mixed strategy would be in terms of like, and it might be that you can limp when you're deep stacked, you can limp and call a raise with some hands, and most people won't make big enough raises to push you out. When when I start to limp the button more often, I am against very aggressive players, then I start to limp a lot.
Yes.
I'm limping like a very wide range then, and I could have a monster then.
This is an interesting spot. The overbet from Chris. I know because
Did she just fold a full house?
no, she just had a third pair. She had
Oh.
the other pair in there. But Chris and Kim are both aggressive players, and so they're going to be just as likely to have it there and have a bluff there. So I'm excited to see. I like this kind of. We've been talking more about overbets and micro bets over the course of the last few months, and it's going to be fun to see some of that implemented here. So yeah, we got a comment. Someone you used to know in the chat here. Something oddly satisfying about watching Chris kill his hand. Yeah, that's right. Chris's favorite hand is pocket fives. That's why he's 5x5, and he made Kim lay it down there. But easy to do when you've got the boat.
Yeah. I'm
So
seeing
speaking,
as I would expect, I'm seeing just a real lack of aggression. Anybody who's even remotely recreational is just not aggressive enough heads up. I've written some things about the big poker go heads up matches over the last year or two.
Yes.
And when you see those, it's if you watch one of those and compare it to recreational players, the level of aggression is so much higher. And anybody who's not on that level and hasn't played serious no limit heads up for a living, they're just no one's ever aggressive enough. Just never are.
We'll come back to that in a sec. This looks like this could be an interesting hand. Ace 9 suited for Kim and Queen Jack suited for Chris.
He probably has to flat the Queen Jack suited. Oh, look at that.
He's going for it.
To 3-bet it. She hasn't been raising that much, so I would have flatted there, but
terrible board for that particular hand.
That did not go well.
No. Now you think he's going to just represent the ace here? Would you, if you made that 3-bet, would you be firing here on this board as Chris?
That's why I wouldn't make that 3-bet, because I don't know what to do. Yeah, I would. Your opponent didn't 4-bet, so there's a good chance they don't have an ace, and that's your ace. And they did call your raise, so you're probably beat. So it's, make them fold if you can, but that's the reason not to 3-bet there, is you can end up in these really bad spots.
And there's a pretty chunky bet from Kim, and does not get called, and so she wins another pot. So Chris has a bit of a lead here, but still the effective stacks are 58 big blinds, so tons of poker still to be played. And I expect we'll get a 3-bet from Kim here. So Chris, you were saying the more experienced players play with significantly more aggression. What is it about? Is it just that heads up, the ranges are so wide, both players miss the flop so much, it's just an exercise in kind of giving people the opportunity to fold? Is aggression just more important in these heads up spots?
Sorry, I'm setting up to try to be looking sort of near the camera while I'm watching the matches.
Oh, there you go.
That is a simple way to put it, but I think it's a misnomer. There's lots of like bad language in poker that makes us play incorrectly, and like that charging someone to hit their draw. You didn't
Right.
charge them anything if they hit it, right? You charge them to miss their draw, and then you think about it differently. And this is an example of that. Um, uh, what was your give me the what was the language you used in the question again?
Oh, just if that because you're playing with wider ranges, both players miss the board more often. So you're playing
Yes,
with more air in your range. So there's just more of your range is sort of predisposed to folding if given the opportunity.
right. And so I was just curious like how many of those words you would hit. And so there's the problem is that it's not air when you're heads up.
Right.
Your queen high is a hand, it could win. And your opponent might have what you would call air and
Hmm.
happily call you down with his king high.
Hmm.
The hand values change so much that if we look at hands like they're air or like they're predisposed to folding kind of hands, then we still are seeing the game the same way we see a full ring game. And it's not that, and it's the hand values just change drastically, and the hand reading changes drastically, and we have to adjust, make that big adjustment, know that we're kind of basically playing a different game here. It's just as different as if we were playing stud instead of hold'em. And
I love
so
that.
making those big adjustments and not letting any of the language or the thought processes from full ring poker creep into this is really helpful, because then then you don't get too passive. You don't fold too many
Mm.
hands. You don't, make those kinds of mistakes.
I love that. And folks, if you're watching at home, write that one down. It's a different game, heads up. Um, and I mean, I love that way of thinking about it. I think that rings true. Everything from, the small blind being in position post flop, as you say, to sort of the what counts as air, the promotion of hands that would normally be folds into having a much stronger relative value in heads up ranges. It is like a different game. That's a great point. I'm gonna call back to that, I think.
I'm going to occasionally be eating a carrot.
That's it. This broadcast is over. Yeah.
Mm. I made roasted carrots with cayenne and goat cheese.
Mm.
And everyone else is downstairs eating them. So I'm going to eat them too.
I think that's only fair, Chris. I
Yeah,
think that's only fair. The things we do for our art, eh? Here we are.
that's right. The sacrifices I make for rec poker.
It's true. It's true. So you're getting some love in the Twitch stream here too, Chef Fox. And yeah, someone else loves that. It's as different a game as playing stud. That's going to resonate with some folks, I think, here.
Yeah. Is there a stream that I should be like a chat that I should be watching?
Only if you'd like to. I'll be kind of bringing that here into
Okay.
the show. But if you want
I
to,
pulled up the meeting chat thinking that would be where it was, and then
yeah, no, it is over at twitch.tv/rec poker, but I can bring anything
you
in
can
here.
let me know if somebody starts.
Like, for instance, we've got a question from Elvita here, one of our future contestants, asking, is it virgin goat cheese?
I don't know the status of the goat when it. I would guess not,
So,
because they don't give
sorry,
milk
sorry,
unless
Joe.
they've been impregnated.
This is I think Joe's calling back to a comment on an earlier podcast about something about a youth beverage that maybe we'll just leave it there, but okay. I think that's pretty typical for the region down there. That's a pretty goat cheese heavy part of the states, as far as I understand.
That's where I belong then, because I'll put it on everything. My breakfast in the morning is chorizo and goat cheese in scrambled
Nice.
eggs, like half the time.
I want your life, Chris. That sounds really good.
You
Yeah.
just do it.
That's that easy. It's that easy.
Yeah,
You can
I
go
didn't
to the
like
shop and
stumble.
buy it. It's
I didn't stumble and fall and land in Las Vegas. I just moved there. Just go.
All right. So here we've got Chris putting the bet out. He's got the pair of sevens, and he's also got a little gut shot here for the straight. Kim is, as you kind of mentioned, a pair is hard to make in Hold'em, so she was thinking about continuing there, but decided to let it go.
That was a very disciplined fold. And sometimes against players who are playing more passive and tighter, you can make some folds you sure couldn't make against me. You can make some of those kinds of folds where you just know that there's just not much he can be betting here that I can beat. Whereas against a more aggressive player, you can't get away with that.
Above average flop for Kim here.
Yeah, she should really check again. She's just not going to get called. The board is so dead. It's so unlikely that he has anything that she probably has to check again here. She, the very small bet may be called on occasion, but not very often. She's lucky that he has the straight draw and he might call. That's all the money she's going to get out of this one, I'm sure.
Yeah, I expect she'll put.
She should probably be checking since he called the bet on the turn. He may have one of the draws that's now out there. He may have clubs, or he may have 6-8 or 6-4, and if he's hit an ace and he's going to pay you, then he's going to bet the ace for you. So the majority of his range is either going to bluff or value bet for you, and the stuff that won't do either of those things is not going to call your bet. So probably check there
and let him bluff since the draw's missed. Yeah.
It's hard to get value out of much of anything on that board that wouldn't also bet for you. So there's not much advantage to betting there.
No, I love that.
Oh man.
Uh-oh, carrot down.
Dropping goat cheese, terrible.
Oh my God! If it was a carrot, that was one thing, but dropping the goat cheese, good Lord, that's
a problem.
That's a problem. That's gonna be a problem. All right, this one they both hit the 6. They've both been they've been hitting these shared cards quite a bit, but they haven't been high enough to really start a bloodbath. It doesn't seem.
Yeah, we're moving slow. And then, I've been heads up with very passive players in tournaments at the ends of tournaments a bunch of times, and you're always going to win, and it's going to take forever. It just takes forever. I gotta win. Half a big blind per orbit on average from this guy, so it's gonna, be here all night.
And I guess that's the thing about passive players is that they're really only going to be winning hands. They're really only going to be winning pots when they actually make a hand. And while that can happen from time to time, it doesn't happen very frequently. So if you can kind of grind them down with your aggression, eventually the table's going to tilt your way. Is that about right?
As long as you have the discipline not to pay them off when they do hit that hand. If a player is too passive, then as soon as they raise you, you should throw your cards in the garbage. Don't even give them back to the dealer, and don't even consider playing the pot, because if a passive player raised you, you're in trouble, and you're going to give back all that money that you just stole from them.
Yes.
You spent 9 orbits stealing 9 big blinds, and then they 3-bet you to 9 big blinds, and you call, and you have to fold the flop because they jam because they have 2 kings, and now you got to start all over again. So don't give them that and have to start all over again.
Yep. Now I expect we'll see a call from Kim here, but oh no, she's going for the 3-bet, so she's playing a really wide board covering 3-bet range here to include.
I like a little bigger 3-bet in that situation. Usually, if I'm 3-betting from the big blind heads up, it's going to be a little bigger 3-bet, and we find solvers are often doing that too. I'd like to just end the hand now. Even if I have aces, I'm fine with the hand just ending now. Let's not play a lot of pots out of position if we can avoid it.
Yeah, we had Daro Carney on the show last week in the booth here, and he was really emphasizing how important position is in these heads-up matches in particular, and really driving home to our audience just how much it affects the sizing of your plays, the lines that you're going to take post flop, how much more often you have to kind of go into check call mode instead of driving the action. It sounds like you're similarly inclined.
I was checking to see if the sunset was good yet, but the sun's a little too bright still.
You're making us all jealous. Yeah, it looks really good,
when the sunset happens.
I love it.
Yeah, Dara's excellent. A good teacher, very lucid. does a good job. He's part of the cards chat team with me as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's great. Well, another friend of the show and a great friend of recreational players everywhere, just like yourself, Chris. So we like to collect all the amazing people we can
There you
here at Rec
go.
Poker and hold on to them tight, you know?
I think it's pretty important to know what the kind of base level is, the foundation that would be, you can use GTO ranges and solver solutions for that stuff, or you can just, read enough about it to get a good foundation for heads up play, and then to be willing to go play very exploitive, to be paying a lot of
Mm,
attention to your opponent. Um, there were people that I frequently made money against in heads up sit and goes because who were world class players who just fantastic, but they were playing four tables.
right,
And
right.
like Paul Volpe is almost certainly a better heads up player than I am. He's I think he's one of the best players in the world. But if he's playing four tables, he's not better than I am because in
Mm-hmm.
heads up, you really are focused on what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
working like every tendency of your opponent and playing, perfectly. And if he's paying attention to three other tables, no,
Yeah.
he's not gonna do it. So, being able to be exploitive when you see those mistakes and changing gears really fast and trying to be and then knowing, am I a step ahead of this opponent or not? If you are a step ahead, really trust it and go after it. And if you're not,
Mm-hmm.
roll back to that foundation and keep watching until you find a way to get a step ahead. If you have a solid foundation, you got a long time to play before you have to, worry about being on the defensive.
I like it. Kim is one of those players that can kind of recognize if she's ahead. We saw in our matches last week, she was able to kind of deduce based on some bet sizing when our opponent had a medium strength hand, and she picked a couple of really good spots for some bluffs. She picked one there. It's just a couple hands ago here, turning seven high into a bluff on the river. Something
Mhm.
about Chris Jones's play must have told her that he was not feeling particularly comfortable, and she made him fold a better hand. And yeah, Stewie in the chat says, "Nice bluff, Kim." That's right, part of the Poker Friends Forever group there, Stewie. Nice to see you, buddy.
Sometimes it's also paying attention to the table dynamic. How many,
Mm,
have you folded a bunch of hands? The last 10 hands, have you been very timid? If so, your bluffs are going to work a lot more often. And you can't just let that table image sit there. Not only should you use it because it's profitable, you should use it because if you don't, then when you get a real hand, your opponent's going to fold immediately. And then you're stuck in that tight player vortex where you can never win a heads up match because you're only raising every fifth hand and then your opponent immediately folds, and so you know you can't let your table image get too tight. You have to use it. And she just hadn't played a hand in a little while, and it was a perfect spot to take advantage of that table image. It wasn't anything that he could do about it unless he had really a hand, because she hadn't played a hand in a while and picked a good spot to bluff.
it's all about adapting, right? Just like you say, that's the difference between good players and great players, is they know how to adjust based on how the person across the table from them is playing. So you got the paying attention is so key, making good assumptions, and and Chris, is there something like, was there a certain point in your career where you felt like you kind of had honed the instincts to the point where you were officially, better at that kind of thing, that where you were kind of understanding the stuff more intuitively? Was it a number of years or a number of hands, or how do we kind of know when we can start trusting our gut when it comes to that kind of stuff?
Uh, I think it's a little different for every player. My wife Jordan is an amazing intuitive player who reads people really well and doesn't even always know why. Um, and I don't have that. She makes plays I don't understand sometimes, but they're right. And
Mm,
and so I think it depends on how your brain works. For me, I quantify everything. So if it's a feel play, I can usually explain to you why and what equation that variable went into. And so the feel might be, I think this guy's playing too few hands and this raise looks a little funny, but that's all going to go into for me an equation. Even if it's just a very simple logic problem in my head of, how many outs do I have versus a strong range and that kind of thing. Whereas some people will just go, oh, I know he doesn't have it here, and pile all their chips in. And, you know, that for me, that has to be a whole hand reading process. I know he doesn't have it here hardly ever because this and this and this and this. And some people just go, just look at him. He doesn't have it.
Yep.
I don't have that. So for me, it's never really a point where, now I feel like I can, now I feel different. It's more that I just get better and better at all the variables that go into those equations and doing that kind of thinking quickly. And I certainly got better at reading players over the years, reading opponents. That was quite a turn card.
Yeah, Kim, just like we were talking about before, Kim's going to have a hard time getting away from top pair here.
Yeah. I don't imagine she's going to go broke, but it's going to sting.
And Chris does have about a pot-sized bet left here, and she has been chipping away at him.
I don't think he can put it in. He's got a bet smaller than that, I think.
He has put out.
He's hoping to get somebody with a bad ace to call.
Yeah.
So make a small. Look at. There are no draws out there. There's nothing. He doesn't have any bluffs. And
that's
he can't be. He's not piling in a 10 or a deuce. So he's got to. Oh, he got the call. Nice.
She's suspicious. This is the thing, because these by rec poker standards, these are two players that don't mind putting chips in the middle. So I think they give each other credit for having those bluffs there where a lot of other players might not.
I mean, if you know your player and can get a call in that spot, that's the play to make. Against most people, there's almost nothing your opponent can call with on a bet that big that doesn't have you beat. And your opponent almost never has you beat since you check to him. So you're really just then, what can I get value out of? And the majority of the hands you're getting value out of are aces that are just hoping to chop with aces and kings of the 10. And so you make a small bet that would indicate you have an ace, and you're hoping to get a call from a weaker hand like a 10 or a deuce, and you get the ace to call.
Now, this is a tricky spot here because Kim has made, she made the straight on the river. And as we were talking about, you can't just let those hands go. Even with the trips on board there. So I'll be curious to see now that Chris has the chip lead here. A bit of a TSN turning point on that big hand there a couple ago. Oh, look at that!
I wish I could get that to look. Oh, it's if it would, maybe it'll focus behind me. Oh man, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's not doing it justice, but I can tell it looks great.
That is a stunning sunset. Really nice. And there's a cardinal making noise over in the corner.
Living the life.
Yeah. There was a family of Harris Hawks hanging out today. I've been working, not really living the life because I've been working 12 hours a day for the last 5 days. But I've been doing a lot of my working out on the balcony where the Harris Hawks come by 4 times a day. And so
very cool.
I don't have a lot of complaints.
Oh, now here's Kim getting sneaky, limping with the aces. And then Chris gets second pair
for it too.
And leads out. Yeah, no kidding. They both got a piece of this here. Chris is slowing down. I expect we'll get a bet from Kim because she would. Oh no, she's really. So she kind of limits the amount she can win here now, right?
Yeah, it probably wasn't very much anyway.
Right.
But I would have bet the turn a little. I would have bet small on the turn. Your opponent just doesn't have an ace hardly ever, right? So you can see 3 of them. So your opponent doesn't have an ace very often and isn't going to call much else. So you could bet really small and hope to get a call from a 9 or charge a hand like 7-8. But with just no draws or anything out there on the flop, it's hard to make any money with that hand. And betting small or checking the turn are fine. I would have bet small and tried to keep the money going. And you hate to let them miss their draw for free, right? If they've got a 7-8 or 2 clubs. You want to charge them because they're not going to pay you. They're not going to pay you to have missed the draw on the river.
That's
So you got to
right.
charge them on the turn for it in case they have a draw.
I love that. We talk about that here a lot. Yeah, the turn is really your last street to get value from those draws. So if you're considering a 2-street or a 3-street hand, that's one thing to factor in. And so it just
And when
goes
you
for
have a
the
hand where a draw is drawing dead, like she did, you have to try to get a little value on the turn. Try
good
to get
point.
something out of that draw.
Well, she's getting some hands now, although that's not the
Sure
board
is.
for pocket jacks, but they've each got some potential here. If
When she's
Chris
pre-flop
checks
raiser,
again,
she can still bet those jacks on that flop.
yeah,
She doesn't have to. A solver will check there fairly often, I think, but she can because your opponent's not going to call without an ace or a king.
mhm,
They're going to assume, and they're going to assume that you raised, so you're much more likely to have hit the ace or the king. And since they didn't 3-bet, they're not likely to have an ace or a king. But checking behind there is just fine with 2 jacks. You can catch a jack or a queen to make a monster, or you can keep the pot small and win it just with jacks.
yep. And Chris was thinking about trying to take it away on the river there. I'm not sure if it would have worked or not, but he's got something to think about. Another huge hand for Kim. Holy cow! Aces,
She's
jacks,
really
and kings in the last like six hands or something here. And Chris has a pretty playable hand as well. So
you can't fold that. You got to see a flop.
So Chris has the backdoor flush and the gut shot here to the straight. Kim's got the overpair, and I expect we'll see a continuation bet here on this board. Chris's range is going to have a lot of ways to hit a piece of this, I expect. So you can get called by a lot of worse hands here.
And you want to make sure you get your full double up if you're facing a
Mm-hmm.
queen jack or ace 9 or something.
Yeah. When in Chris's shoes here, when Kim puts in that size bet there, do you ever, she's going to have less than a pot size bet behind. Do you ever turn a hand like this into a bluff, or is she just uncharacteristically strong with a range that leads out like that?
Well, I mean, for her to 3-bet pre-flop is indicates pretty serious strength. She hasn't done that light much, so I would expect her to really have something. And if you pile it in, you just don't have enough backup there. I don't think. I would have folded to the flop bet.
Another good set of hands here. We see the open from Kim with ace jack. Chris is putting in that sneaky little 3-bet there with king 9 off. Do you like that as a 3-bet, Chris, given the circumstances here?
No, I'd like to see a flop with that king 9 and not build a big pot out of position. You give your opponent the chance to shove and make you fold. You're not going to call it off with king 9. So your hand is a bluff, but it has a bunch of value in seeing a flop. A lot of hands that are in a full ring game, you'd say, though, this hand loves to see flops, and that would be Jack 10 suited and hands like that. In heads up, any 2 cards above 8 love to see flops because a single pair is the equivalent of flopping a flush in a full ring game. So these are big drawing hands when you have a hand like king 9, and you hate to have to fold them. And then that's another good way to look at heads up play is that the value of all those hands you make also skyrockets. And so a single pair might be the equivalent of making 2 pair trips. Top pair certainly is, in terms of the rarity and the likelihood you're going to win the hand. And if you start to treat them that way, then you could look at your pre-flop play differently. The value of your hands, the suited connectors go way down in value, and the big cards go way up. Where in a full ring game with 4 people already in the pot, I'd probably rather have 6, 7. But in a heads up pot, give me the ace 9 offsuit.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
I don't think Chris is going to get. Oh, she check raised him on a bluff. She might.
Yeah,
she might see all the chips here. If it were me,
this is her board.
Yeah, if you call that. If you're 5x5 and call that, then now you're in this bad spot. If the turn doesn't go your way, that doesn't go well. That's why I like to stuff it in there, make it an easy decision for me and a hard decision for them.
Yep,
And
I
then
like that.
she kind of has to pile it in here with this board. I would honestly overbet this by 10 big blinds and just stuff it all in. He can't have a hand that calls. He
Mm.
can't have anything. It's going
Just
to be
thinking about
very
it.
rare that he has a 7 in his hand when he opens, calls a 3-bet, plays the hand the way he did. We know he doesn't have a queen.
Mm-hmm.
So if he doesn't have a queen or a 7, he's probably got to fold here. I think you have to pile it in, and if you lose, you lose. You're short stacked anyway. But I think that the indications are that pot belongs to you.
Mm. And how important is it that she's playing the board at this point? Like, if she had more showdown value, would that change that calculus? Or
Absolutely.
yeah.
If she had a 10, it might change it. Even a 10 might change. But certainly like a king or a jack maybe would change it. A king would for sure. But she can't win anything, And
So I think
it's
that's
very unlikely that she can get a chop. I mean, there's very few
yeah.
he can have that she's still chopping with. So
I like that little tiny value bet by Chris on the river there, talking about what you're saying, Fox, the value of hands going up. He's value betting king high there on the 2 pair to the 8 forward, trying to get called by a queen or a jack or one of those hands like we're talking about. So savvy play from Chris Jones. Who has regained the chip lead here. So they've been putting it back and forth a little bit. They even back out for a while. Now Chris has the lead again. About a little more than 2-1. But the effective stack is still 19 or 20 big blinds. So there's no running for the hills yet. They've still got some cards to play. Although this hand might be it. Oh my God, we got the shove from pocket eights. Chris is thinking about it.
it's if the effective stack is 20 big blinds and you get a hand like ace 10, you better have a plan if you're going to open raise. You know, a lot of people will just stuff that hand. If you're going to open raise and then somebody stuffs on you, and you have to think for a while about it, you didn't have a plan,
And there it is. So ace 10 is the winning hand for that one. Chris Jones comes in with the win, and Pet Vet has to retire for the first match of MaREC Madness Elite 8. And while we're kind of getting set up, I know Taylor's going to be doing his producer magic behind the scenes, putting up the next match. So let's talk about that one a little bit. So it was.
I'm going to take like a 2-minute break and eat the rest of my carrots.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds great. So I'll just mention that was Kim Pet Vet Kilroy.
With the tough job of entertaining people by yourself. I know how fun that is as a broadcaster.
Yeah, well, enjoy those carrots, Chris. We'll be right back here when you've had your carrot break. So yeah, it looked like a couple setup hands there, a couple big pots, a lot of small pots. I think as we see these players that really know what they're doing competing heads up, that is what you end up seeing, unless there is a bit of a setup deck. Like Chris was alluding to earlier, you see a lot of aggression, you see a lot of people trading small bots back and forth, and we certainly saw that. We saw some fun bluffs, we saw some cool over bets, and our hats off to 5x5 Chris Jones, the official 16th seed, coming in with a chip on his shoulder and putting Kim Pet Vet Kilroy out of the tournament. So the winning hand was ace 10, and I think we even had we had a guess. Now, Chris, I don't know if we're going to be able to count this guess.
Does not count.
Chris Jones is in there with ace 10. So I think he had a feeling. He had a premonition about how this was going to go, or maybe he was guessing what Fox's favorite hand was going to be. So we'll see what. We'll see. I think that's right, Chris. Maybe you were just weighing in on what Fox Wallace's favorite hand was. And excellent timing. I have finished my first of the fork roll. so we can get ready here for match number 2.
So you have is it that you have a girls per match?
That is my plan for tonight. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Oh boy.
I feel you should have. If I had known, I would have gotten some girls.
Oh, are you a Grolsch
Would
fan
have
as
had some
well?
shipped down here or something. I would have had some of them.
Oh, yeah. This well, this won't be our last opportunity. I hope, Fox. Certainly,
Yeah.
your next one's on me, man. That's great. This was my family's favorite beer up at the cabin in the summers, and so when I was a teenager, this was the one that I would go liberate from the fridge when people weren't looking, and I just
Sure.
kept a taste for it all these years.
Then
I
went
keep
to the fridge
telling.
for another 5-pack. Keep that.
That's right, exactly. What's going on? Right?
Yeah.
I keep telling you, Grolsch, come at us. We need a drink sponsor. Rec
There you
Poker
go.
does not have a beer sponsor.
And
And what could be?
Grolsch is just not well known enough. They really could use the exposure.
I agree. For
People
a
don't know
quality
about this
beer
stuff.
like this, it's criminal that they don't have the kind of following that they deserve. Thank you, Chris. I agree. Grolsch, come at us. It's not too late. It's never too late, Grolsch. All right. Well, I think we'll get the second match lined up here, and we'll be ready to go with Kathy versus Michael. I'm really excited for this one. So you'll be able to see Kathy Chang at the top of your screen here, aces, and with ace 7 suited, and Michael Babker at the bottom here, starting off with king 3 off. And just like that, we've got a 4x open from Kathy.
It was a
And
limp and then a 4x raise.
oh, thank you. There we go. That's exactly what it was. Right. Yeah. Michael limped in, and then Kathy came in with the 4x. So this is going to be a fun one. Michael's actually also a Minnesota boy, but he lives down in Florida now. And like I said, Kathy's out there in Vegas with you, Chris, where all the fun happens. And she is a very experienced player as well. So I'll be curious to see how this comes. She won her way into here playing the qualifying match that we do every quarter, and now she's got top pair on a paired board, and Michael's checked to her. I think this is a mandatory lead there.
Yeah, you have to bet that. Your hand is very vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
and
I don't know what I'm commentating on. So tell me about the process of people getting into this thing and how this all works.
Yeah,
And
great.
is it $1 million at the end or something?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's $1 million of my own money put up for the winners of this. It's no, like all our home game clubs, the winners get these fantastic Rec Poker pins, and we have a bracket that we set made up of our community members, our premium members, our wrecking crew members, and a few qualifiers who won their way in through our quarterly MaREC Madness qualifier series. And so then we set up these 16 players to play in this MaREC Madness bracket. And week by week, we kind of break down the matches and find out who the winners are going to be here live on Twitch. So
who chooses the people that fill out that bracket other than the qualifiers?
Well, Taylor Moss, who is the producer here. I think the way it happens officially is we talk about it in our Rec Poker planning meetings with the wrecking crew members. We select a few wrecking crew members to kind of anchor a few spots. The qualifiers take a few more. We run a contest for our members to get drawn, like a raffle winner. And Taylor might have a couple other tricks.
Okay,
so
it comes in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, exactly. So you get a variety of experience levels, skill levels, and different kinds of players, and it makes for some really fun matches. Oh, yeah. Joe says, or you can wash my car. Anyone who washes my car gets a free entry. That's a little known secret.
That's nice.
Yeah, well, we're all here to contribute. Everyone contributes differently. It is like a co-op here at Rec Poker, I've mentioned before. So this is interesting. So they're playing quite deep here, and that's a 2x open with pocket queens from Kathy on the button. I don't know if I haven't played with Kathy enough to know if she has a series of different open sizes depending on hand strength or other factors like that. But we'll find out tonight, I think.
And a lot of limping from Michael.
Mm-hmm. That has been the subject of some conversation around here for the last 6 months or so. Is this limping the small blind in these heads up ones? You just never know. Um,
The
different people
first
are
way to
definitely going to
check
the strategies.
any strategy debate is, what do the best players do? Do the best players do it? Just look at that. That's the first way, and that'll solve 95% of strategy debates.
I like that. We've got some comments here in the chat. Yeah, Joe, we're not. Yeah, you have to go into my basement to get the $1 million. That's right. And then you just try your luck, see if you come out. You never know.
Right.
You never know what happens in the basement.
Usually, just a red balloon floats out the door. And never seen it.
I love it. I love it. And JB Twin Cities says, yeah, people helped me move homes a couple years ago. That's right. We had the Rec Poker moving crew head up to JB's place and help her move from one to another. That's just
amazing.
one of the Rec Poker perks around here. Yes, yeah. There's some fun folks in the chat tonight. And I'm getting corrected that Michael, I did know this actually. Michael was born and bred in Florida, lived in Minnesota for a long time, but now he's happy to be back in Florida where it's not snowing, and he's got some family and all that. So congratulations. Well said. Thanks for the correction.
Yeah.
All right, so now we'll see. This looks like if Michael's playing a limping strategy, this one's going to be an open at 2.5. And against the 2.5 open, Chris, how widely are you defending the big blind at this stack depth? Are you still defending quite widely, even though you're out of position?
I'm never defending wide in heads up play. The essence of heads up play in tournaments is to open a lot of buttons and not defend a lot of big blinds. Lay all the hands in position.
Yep.
So I don't defend super wide in the big blind, and I'm usually, depending on stack depth, you defend different ranges of hands. Your percentage of hands that you defend might not change in some situations, but the types of hands that you defend. If you're 17 big blinds deep, Queen 9 is a perfectly fine hand to defend with, or King 7 or something. King 7 offsuit can be fine because either of those hands can flop a winner just with a pair. If you're 100 big blinds deep, King 7 offsuit really sucks. You can't make a monster with that. You're going to win 100 big blinds with. So then you're happier to have 7-8 suited than King 7 offsuit.
And I'll just remind our audience to enter your guesses into the chat here. If the 10 of clubs is featured in a winning hand, then you will win a prize. Or someone will win a prize raffled off. But if you also guess the winning hand, you will get a prize as well. That's going to be a free month at one of our fantastic training sites, either Rec Poker or one of our learning partners. And we'll get into the details of that at the end of the show. Now, I think the winning hand, last one, was Ace 10. I don't remember if the 10 was the 10 of clubs. So we'll have to ask our producer, Taylor, to double check if the 10 of clubs was in that hand, that Ace 10 hand. It was the 10 of spades, I'm being told. All right, well, so much for that. And Michael gets that Ace High Flush 2 showdown. Easy game, folks.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Now another limp from Michael and the raise from Kathy, and then Michael lays down the Ace 7 offsuit there, I think, which feels like a little tight, given the heads up. Chris, are you playing every ace at this point? Are you calling? Are you limp calling?
I understand why he would fold in that situation. It's probably not the GTO play, but if you're playing against an opponent who's pretty tight, I mean, how good is how well are things going to go for you with Ace 7 and with deep stacks? With Ace 7 offsuit with 100 big blind stacks or 80 big blind stacks, things it's not like you're ever going to have slam dunks, and things are not going to be great. And if an ace flops, how many chips are you willing to put in? You've been 3-bet now, so now you have a bluff catcher, even if an ace flops. So it can be a really tough spot, and sometimes people will fold it just because they're uncomfortable, and sometimes those people are me.
Yes. Well, it's one of those spots where, when that ace comes, either your opponent has a better ace than you, And if they don't, it should kind of slow them down a little bit if they had an overpair or something like that instead. So when they choose to continue, you're not really going to be feeling very comfortable, like you say, with A7.
And how are you going to make the decision? If you're facing an aggressive player, how many chips are you willing to put in there? Because an aggressive player may know, you just flatted a 3-bet, you didn't 4-bet, and now you're just checking and calling, and that maybe you have an ace that you're not real excited about. And so if they stuff for 1.5x the pot on the turn, can you call?
Yeah.
And if you can't, then you're going to be abused in that way the whole game.
Now this is an interesting spot where the board's double paired and Kathy's got a king. That king high is often going to be good in spots like this, right? Is this a situation where you just maybe try and get that to showdown? Well,
No, you try to bet it to build a pot for when you hit your king.
The river. So Michael would love to get his ace to
I think her
showdown
bet
now, but
her bet on the turn makes sense. And Michael's check and call makes sense. He's trapping there,
Yes, felt like that too. I love Kathy's got the Rec Poker hoodie on. I love seeing that when our fans and members represent us, not only in casinos around the world, but here in MaREC Madness matches too. That's beautiful. I love seeing that. We do have some fun merch out there. If people want to check that out in the shop, head on over to rec.poker and see what you can pick up there. It's not just hoodies and hats anymore. We got a ton of cool stuff in there to help represent your favorite poker site and community.
Like what?
We've got a variety of tees, long sleeve and short sleeves. We've got a couple different kind of hats and toques. I think we've got mugs and beer coolers and all sorts of cool stuff like that. So
all right,
I'll try and bring some down to Vegas, Chris, when I come to visit you in late June. I'll have to have a few broche for that, I think. What do you say?
Absolutely. Good planning coming to visit me in Vegas in late June.
I know, right?
That'll be not only will
I draw.
I'll be super busy and you won't get to see me, but it'll be 118 degrees. That's good.
I'm a thinker. I'm a planner. I try to plan ahead.
Next year, you want to make that happen in April. Really nice in April or March. It's real nice.
It's going to be a good reason to come down in December this year as well, from what I hear. WPT is going to be.
I think every year for a while. I think the WPT is really serious about that thing, and it's going to be the Winter World Series, which they will burn my house down if they hear me call it that. But that's what everybody's calling it. It's the Winter World Series.
Yeah. Well, it is a more hospitable time to be in Las Vegas in December. I'll give them that.
It's not always great. It can be chilly and windy.
Chilly. Yeah. You've been down there too long, Chris.
Absolutely. Yeah, fast. The first year we were living there in the winter, we went and we walked through this park and there was a softball match going on, or a baseball match. It was kids. And there were some of the parents were sitting along the foul line in lawn chairs with blankets on their legs. And one of them had a space heater between two of the people. And it was 56 degrees.
Oh my God.
It was 56 degrees. And I thought, these people are absolutely ridiculous. How can this be? And now when it's 50 degrees, it is cold and unacceptable. I have to put on long pants again.
Why'd we even come here?
Yeah, I joke about moving to Hawaii or San Diego every time it gets below about 60 degrees.
Yeah, that seems perfectly reasonable. There's a question in the chat. Is there a Santa hat in the shop? There is. There's a Grinch hat there. There is a Santa hat. And Chris Jones says, chili, you've got soft fox. That's it. It's time. San Diego or Hawaii, those seem like greener pastures. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just can't afford to live in either of those places and make a living. Or I would already live in one of them.
Yeah.
There's a reason
San Diego's got some poker.
There's a reason that things are so. Yeah, I could live in San Diego if I had a bankroll to play, do 25, 50 no limit every day to be able to pay the mortgage on a house in San Diego.
Okay, yeah, good point.
Yeah. Yeah, I could probably live cheap in San Diego and get by on $250,000 a year. Yeah. Jordan's not a cheap date. So Yeah.
She's got great
And
taste.
like
I'll say that.
you could live cheaper in Hawaii, but there's no real poker there.
Right.
There's some underground games, but I don't want to rely on underground poker games to
Mm-hmm.
start living.
Smart.
Especially because if you beat them, you tend to get uninvited.
Yes. Yep. True. Well, this one could get sticky here. They both made a pair, although it's not top pair, but that's not going to slow down Kathy Chang, who puts out about a half pot bet on the flop. Another overcard comes, and that might slow down the action, but Kathy's going to push it and try and get some value there. Pretty good card, honestly.
She might have been able to value bet again.
I was thinking that because if he had a jack, I bet we would have heard something about it.
Yeah.
Before that point.
If he doesn't have a jack, you have the winning hand with the king.
Yeah, definitely. And ace king versus the Chris Jones, pocket 5. And we'll get a C bet here. And do you always just come? Oh, wow. What a great card for Kathy. Picks up a little equity on the turn. I think Michael has to bet again here, right?
I don't. It depends. I might check behind there, and then be willing to be frisky on the river.
Mm-hmm.
If your opponent checks to you, you can overbet the pot there. You can also check behind if you think that they often will have nothing. And then if they bet into you, how big is their hand really? How big? Like,
Yes.
let's find out. This could be a how big is your hand now, like situation where you turn your ace king into a bluff because so frequently they're not going to have a monster on that board. That board was just immense.
And then Kathy
The way that it played out, it just didn't seem like hardly ever Kathy's going to have a big hand there. So, and she usually does have a pair the way it played out. So, it's a bluffing situation if you're going to continue. But I might check behind on the turn, just, preserve that value. I don't want to get check raised off my hand on the turn. That could be a disaster when I've got 6 outs, or even bluff raise it off it when I'm ahead.
Yes, which you are a lot, in spots like that. That makes perfect sense. So here's Kathy coming in with the 3x. She does have the chip lead now.
Mixing it up.
Not quite 2-1, but she is out to a bit of a lead. And we do see an open from Michael with pocket jacks to 2.5. Yeah, she's picked up that flush draw or a king for the win, but Michael is going to be pressing his edge here with that's not what you want to see in Michael's shoes. Insta check by Kathy. Do you continue here as Michael when that second overcard comes?
Not if you check the flop. If you check the flop, you can't bet here. You check again and hope to get bluffed into on the river.
Another huge hand for Michael with pocket aces, but he does have some room to make up. Kathy's picked up an almost 3-1 chip lead, and I expect we'll see a 3-bet, but I think that 3-bet's just a little too small. Chris, do you agree?
Is that the first time he's made a 3-bet that small? I don't remember him saying do that. I mean, sometimes that's just a real giveaway.
Yeah.
You don't want to give away that you have a big hand if you're not charging for that information. You want to charge for it.
So Kathy has picked up a flush draw here, and she doesn't know she's drawing dead to his full house. And she makes the flush, so this is going to be really interesting.
Drawing dead and then hitting it is the worst.
Yes. And Michael puts it all in, so he's putting her into a real tough spot here and gets the call. So, and like you say, this is the second time we've seen tripped board, and we're seeing those overbets there, and they are getting called. So now we are right back close to even. Michael has a small lead, and it's a whole new game again. That's the nature of heads up play, isn't it?
Yeah, a couple hands can change everything.
So now we see Kathy's size down to a 2x open now that the blinds are effectively in the 50s. And I expect that's pretty stack informed. I'm not sure exactly where her thresholds are for when to 2.5 or 3x or 2x, but we'll kind of see this expressed throughout the course of the match. All right, Mike picks up another pretty small pot, but pads his chip lead a little bit. And there's that 2x again from Kathy. Michael's definitely continuing, and he takes it as a call. Chris, when our opponent's 2xing and we're in the big blind, we're obviously 3-betting our very best hands. I mean, maybe we might be calling with some of them sometimes to trap, but where do you fall on 3-betting some of these like suited connectors or suited gappers to kind of cover more boards and balance our range a little bit?
I don't do much of it.
Hmm.
I think if we're looking to balance, we should be flatting more
Interesting.
and 3-betting the hands that we're not sad to be 4-bet off of. Preserving your equity is a big thing. I just worked with a student this week on PLO, and PLO is really a game of making sure you don't get bet off your equity. So and that applies a lot in these situations too. You hate to 3-bet king 9 and have somebody 4-bet you with a pair of 8s or something. That's terrible. And you also hate to the same thing with 5-7 of diamonds and getting 4-bet off of it. Or getting 3-bet or 3-betting and then you're out of position with a hand that usually doesn't have anything. So your opponent can really abuse you in those situations. I would 3-bet less and 3-bet bigger than most recreational players do. When you're out of position, your 3-bet should be bigger. You should be doing it less often. You don't want to play big pots out of position, but if your opponent's raising 100%, then you can 3-bet fairly often. But there's no reason to go crazy with the 3-betting when you can also just flat and get a discount on seeing all those flops, and know that they have a super wide range, and you can 3-bet wider, but you don't have to 3-bet a ton to get away with that. So, I mean, one of the solutions to someone who raises a lot is just to flat a lot, as long as they're not raising a big number.
Yes,
they're min raising, and then and do it even with some good hands.
And so when you are mixing in some of those lighter 3-bets, just so that you're not exploitatively strong when you do, if you don't like some of those suited connectors or suited gappers, what are some examples of the hands that have enough equity or blocker value to make them good 3-bets, but you don't mind folding them when you get 4-bet?
Yeah, that would be the single big card, like King 8 offsuit is a great hand for that.
Yeah.
And I don't hate doing it with a suited 1-gapper once in a while. That's okay. But I'd prefer to be flatting with all those hands. And as the stacks get shorter, you're concerned about staying balanced because of an information leak. But as the stacks get shorter and you're putting in a larger percentage of the stack, the effective stack, that information leak doesn't matter so much. If you start with the very basic, if you and I play a game where I have 2 aces in my hand and it, I take them out of the deck, and every hand I get to keep these 2 aces.
Yeah.
And then you get 2 random cards every time, and we each put a quarter of our stacks in, and then you get to decide whether we put the rest in or not. I will call if you go all in. I'm going to still win long term, even if every time you flop 2 pair or a set or whatever, I have to pay you off. I still win because I've gotten in too much money pre-flop as a big favorite.
Yes.
And I like applying that, teaching people that concept and then talking about applying it to every situation. Because as the stacks get shorter, that getting in a bigger chunk of your chips so that the information leak doesn't matter gets a lot easier. So that when you're at 20 big blinds, when you 3-bet, you don't have to shove for 20 big blinds. I often will just 3-bet shove, but say it's 25 big blinds and you want to 3-bet to 7.5 against a min raise, you've gotten almost a third of the chips in there. If you're also in position, you really it's hard to beat that advantage you now have, even though you've given away that you have a hand. And you also, if you do it with a little bit wider range, or you're also doing it with like ace king and ace queen, then they don't know if you really have an overpair or if you've hit an ace or whatever. There's still some information hidden, but it doesn't matter really because they can flip their hand over at that point. So, when the stacks are deep, balance is much more important. When the stacks are short, equity is much more important.
That's a great one. I like that. An interesting spot here where Michael has actually
ripped fours and a straight.
And so Michael Smooth called there. I guess the paired board kind of scared him off a little bit. But is that one of those spots where you'd consider a value raise with the straight, or is it just too worried about the paired board with these spots?
I should have been paying better attention to how the hand played out, but there are definitely times there where you should be raising. Opponents, how does this feel? How did the hand play out? How often am I going to be good here? But you hate to put in money where if you get called, you're usually beat, and if you get raised, you have to fold and go straight. And there was enough money in the pot that if he bet and got raised, he would be folding away an awful lot of chips. So I understand why you wouldn't want to raise there. I'd have to watch the game back again and pay attention like I'm supposed to be able to answer that question in that specific spot.
So it really is a villain dependent kind of a situation. If you have a more passive opponent, you can go for the thin raise there, but otherwise you got to worry about those raises.
A more looser opponent or a more aggressive.
Oh, good point.
For that too. It's just a range that you think will work.
And so now we're back to almost even chip stacks. Michael has a small advantage, except he has a bigger advantage now because they both have paired their 5, but he's got a king to go along with it.
And this is one of the advantages of limping. When you're limping, it's like king 5. You keep your opponent's range super wide. They're playing now everything, and so you often when you flop something, you can be dominating. It doesn't happen often enough to justify limping all the time, but it is one of the advantages of limping for sure.
I think we got the full
range is wide. It's really valuable.
Yes, especially when you can dominate someone like that. So this one could get ugly. Michael's checking the overpair, and Kathy's made top pair. I expect we'll see a raise from Michael here.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, good. There we go to 8 big blinds, and a quick call.
That's scary Kathy. For everybody. That's going to keep the pot a little smaller, I bet.
It might. Yep. He's not afraid. He puts out 10 into 22, and we're getting pretty short. The SPR
put it all in there now.
Here. It could be. He's got the 8 high flush essentially, and makes a really small bet, trying to get value from a worse flush or something else on the board. Kathy does call with 2 pair. The sizing got her, and so Michael picks up a commanding chip lead here.
That was the right sizing there.
About 3-1. Yeah, very encouraging sizing, very irresistible sizing. And it proved through. So this is going to be interesting now. Kathy's down in chips.
That's a really small bluff. That's an awfully small bluff.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't look like she was planning to follow up on a future street either. So I usually I don't mind that small bluff on the flop if you're going to follow up later and take it away. But otherwise, try and add a little more fold equity, right? And size up a little.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of folds on that board because everybody's got 2 overcards to it if you bet that small.
Right. Good point. I expect we'll see. There's that 3x from Kathy. So she was 2.5xing for a while. The effective stack's gotten a lot smaller, and she's 3xing there. Might just be strength of hand. Michael's going to have to get ace king tattooed on him somewhere. He's been getting that a lot tonight.
Sometimes the bigger bet, like something I certainly have done in heads up matches. The bigger bet with the smaller stacks is I've heard people call it a notice bet. Essentially putting your opponent on notice that you're going to put all the chips in. Yep. So you don't get the discount of being able to call for 1 big blind now. And if you shove, I'm often going to call. We're too short for me to be putting in 3 big blinds and folding a lot. I'm doing this for a reason. And sometimes it really works. You know, in spots where you can't quite open shove, and you know that your opponent is going to be pretty tight to a bet that size to an open of 3x. Sometimes it works really well.
And Kathy's got Chris's favorite hand. It's been popular tonight, and she did pick up a pot back there, so she's back to about a 2-1 chip deficit. Michael's still ahead, but Kathy's got 30 big blinds and tons of room. Another A7 for Kathy, and now we're seeing the open from Michael with some of these weaker holdings. Pretty good flop for him. Yeah. If Kathy hits her ace, it's going to be bedlam here. It's going to be a bloodbath.
Michael should be betting again here. That's the overcard scare card that he wants.
Now that's really the card he wanted, but
yeah, he gets bluffed into. That's great.
That's perfect. So he's definitely got to go for the raise. Even with the hearts on board, I don't think
you can see Kathy in the video, just like, oh,
yeah, picked the wrong spot. And Kathy plays live a lot, so she's not afraid. She's used to having to kind of maintain that stoic demeanor. But once the action's over, I think she knows that she can have some fun here. Oh boy, here's Michael locking it up in position. It's pretty wet board though, so that's the card you did not want to see if you're Michael. But you still got too good a hand.
I think you love that if you're Michael. It gives you a chance to be beating win a big pot, or
yes, that's true.
A hand like a pair of threes. If that's a 7, it's more scary for the pair of threes than if it's another 9.
That's a good point. And there's that bet fold from Kathy. She's using every tool in the arsenal. I see Michael typing in the chat here. If there's one thing he's learned from Grandpa George, he's not getting ace king tatted. Yeah, good point, Michael. You're hanging with good company there. Ace king can be a fickle mistress. And coming into this one, so Michael's got about a 4-1 chip lead. Kathy's getting pretty close to getting 2 cards in pre-flop. Chris, when you're getting down to this kind of sub 15 big blinds, how important is it how many chips your opponent has when you're considering whether to start shoving pre-flop?
I mean, that's one of the factors that would go into how often I think they're going to call. But what really matters is how often are they going to call. And it's a pretty small thing. It's all exploitive. A GTO bot wouldn't care about it at all. Yep. And so then it's just another factor you consider is are they so deep that they don't care and they're just going to call and I can't shove light and I have to just shove for value? Or are they, or do they, do I have 15 big blinds and they have 25 and, they know they're going to be crippled if I double through them, But, as the players get better and better, that matters less and less. And people are just shoving and calling pretty close to GTO correct.
This one could be an action hand. Michael has top pair with ace jack, and Kathy's got second pair with queen jack. Jack on the river would pretty much seal it, but so far Kathy's driving the action and getting called. And this is going to be very interesting because with a half pot bet behind, she's considering her options. She does.
She has to check and then probably call it off, but she has to check. She can't bet and fold out the 2 hearts hands that might bet into her.
And Michael does put in the bet to put her all in. She's got second pair on the river. Her tournament life is on the line, and she's thinking about it. She's thinking about it here. It makes the correct fold. Maybe she got to tell Chris. Maybe he was just exuding confidence through the video panel here on this Poker.now platform.
How does that thing work? Is it essentially like PokerStars home games, kind of where you just go set up your own stuff?
Yeah, it's a great program. We do a lot of our learning material off the Poker.now platform. It's free. Anyone can go set up a game. It's got the camera, the microphone. You can set up God mode like this so that other people can watch and record and analyze your play. So it's got a lot going for it.
That was cool.
So, yeah. And Kathy manages to lose just another small pot. So she is still in this one here. at 5.5 big blinds. Michael's got all the rest, and she's all in with king 2 of clubs and picks up a small pot.
You got to be shoving super wide when you're down that low.
Mm-hmm.
Not as wide as 8-3 offsuit.
No, I think these ones will
just barely not there.
And so she does play the limp, so she's looking to make a pair, and she does
did.
make second pair.
Amazing. She's going to beat 9-3 with 8-3.
It's amazing when you can do it. Great feeling. I think as Taylor points out in the chat, you know what they say? All you need is a chip and a seat. Almost got that one right, Taylor. You almost nailed it. Yeah, there's something that's just not quite off on that, but valiant effort.
I think it's a buy-in and a bench, isn't it?
That's the correct. Yes, that's how I've heard it before. All you need is a buy-in and a bench. Yeah, that old classic poker expression. Oh wow! So
another double up.
Flopping the straight remains a successful, profitable poker strategy. I'd encourage everyone to give
as
that
often as possible.
Yeah, Gipper says he really thinks it's a seat. All you need is a chip and a seat. He really thinks that, says Gipper.
He's on the comeback trail.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, yeah, she's got him dominated now. I don't think Michael's coming back, and he knows it too. And here, listen. I mean, all joking aside, like that, the chip lead's been cut down to about 2.5, and it was very one-sided there for a second. Chris, you and I have been in enough of these situations to know how quickly it can turn, and all it takes is a few hands going the other direction, and all of a sudden, don't start spending that money just yet, right?
Absolutely.
That $1 million.
I'd probably brave a pretty scary basement for that kind of money, honestly. Clown or no clown, let's go.
If folks don't know, there's a bit of a bit on Twitter about what I have set up in my basement. I assure you, it's storage only. Lots of floor drains, easily wipeable surfaces, lots of secure anchor points for storage. Storage only.
Not body storage either, just actual normal storage.
Hey, that has never been proven forensically, and that's a statement that I can stand behind. So just come on over, check out the basement sometime. You never know, some fun stuff could happen down there.
There's a sign above the stairs on the way down that says Dexter's Garage.
Yeah, come on, we'll have a slice. You never know.
Neon script, Dexter's Garage. It's really
Dexter's
nice.
Garage.
Just a bar sign.
I'm just gonna write down hashtag Dexter's Garage for the next time I'm on Twitter.
There you go.
That's where I keep the $1 million. So someone, the winner of this whole series is going to be faced with a very difficult decision.
And as are a whole bunch of other people who will consider now that they know there's $1 million there.
Oh no, what have I done?
Be the winner of
winner
of MaREC Madness.
You don't think this is going out on the internet, do you, Chris?
Luckily, you live in Canada. People are so nice; they're not going to steal that money.
No, and it's Canadian dollars too. So I should have
specified
that earlier. Then. So it's really like just a
scary basement for that.
It's like a bag of feathers to you guys.
Yeah.
So how many beaver pelts is that? Yeah.
If it was $1 million in maple syrup, then I'm in.
Mm-hmm. And that stuff keeps too. Just saying. It's a lot of upside to the maple syrup bracket up here.
Yeah. The maple syrup mob controls all of it. That's only sort of a joke.
Big syrup. No, it's true. It's true. It's true. Yeah. Somsky's goons are very, very active up here in the maple syrup bracket.
Somsky's Goons is the name of my next metal band.
It's good, right? That's a strong leading. We were talking about that earlier.
They use a smiling Somsky as the face of the album cover.
Is there any other kind of Somsky? I've only ever encountered the smiling.
That's true.
Cover.
I've never known another. Yeah, no. That's it.
So we're still getting some fun comments in the chat here about whether it's a chip in a chair or a seat in a chair. a buy-in and a bench. Chris says, I've never in my life had someone new to the table ask me to move my seat. Taylor says, I've never got a tournament entry that said I was at table 3, chair 5. That's a good point. That's a good point. You're not wrong.
But did you sit in a seat or a chair when you got to seat 5?
See, we're getting all philosophical here on the Rec Poker MaREC Madness Twitch stream.
I don't think your buy-in ticket also doesn't say 15,000 chips on it. Yeah,
that's true.
Maybe it's a receipt and a recliner.
We got 1 million of them, folks. Stick around tonight. So Michael's actually betting with the best hand here. He had queen high, but now he's paired as 2. Kathy's got a lot of potential, but the river comes and leaves her with jack high, and she's not afraid to put that bet out. And Michael does lay it down. So Kathy is finding these spots to apply some pressure and win some pots with the worst hand. We've seen that a few times now.
It's a tough board to call on.
Kathy's seen her share of boards, and she knows how to read the action. And no surprise that she's finding some spots to put the bluffs out there. And just like that, we have a chip lead exchange again, and Kathy is coming out just ahead. They're very close to even, but Kathy's picked up just a small chip lead, and she is right back in this thing. Michael's got to be sweating bullets. He thought he had her. He thought he had her down. He thought he had his foot on her throat, but she had a bench and a buy-in, and that's all it takes. And now she's right back in this thing. And coming out with a value bet here with the pair at 6, Michael lets the straight draw go, and we go to another hand. Kathy now with a 2-1 chip lead.
Now Michael's almost down to a stack and a sofa. Almost.
Oh God, we've set him off, folks. We've set him off.
Yep, don't start playing words with the wordsmith.
That's right. You know, this is a published author that we're dealing with here. Yeah, exactly.
I never get tired of it.
That's why they call him Chris Grolsch Wallace.
New nickname.
I'm writing that one down.
When I lived in Detroit, we used to drive over the border to buy beer because it was so much better.
Yes. Yep. I've heard
PBR there, everything, like even American beers there were better. Somehow it was always better there. Even if you just went over the border for a case of Molson, it was better.
Yeah, I mean, it is strong. It is typically, we have a lot of strong beer up there. I don't know how much the back in the day. I mean, and plus the drinking age was lower, so there was all sorts of good reasons.
I wasn't going to mention that, but that might have something to do with it.
That might have factored in.
Yeah. That was the years I lived in Detroit when I was.
There you go. I know.
18, 19,
I
20.
know you. I know you.
Windsor is a super fun town to party in, also, and Detroit was a miserable, murderous hellhole at the time. So there were all kinds of reasons to go to party in Windsor.
That's right. Good point.
Yeah, you get to drink, and the people are nice, and you never come home with stab wounds.
Yeah,
way better.
That does sound pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, it's a big improvement over Detroit.
Stronger beer and much fewer stab wounds. I mean, that's a match made in heaven.
And odd that it would work out that way, right? The stronger beer would be more stab.
You'd think more stab wounds, yeah. But no, we're too friendly. We're too friendly for that.
Well, you are awfully friendly, but you're being compared to Detroit. So, I mean, in this case,
we're setting the bar, in a very advantageous position.
Everybody makes it over that particular hurdle except Philadelphia.
Yeah, you're not alone, Chris. It sounds like JB Twin Cities, when she was in Detroit, made her way up to Windsor once as well. It's a very popular choice.
So it's a great city. They have so Windsor claims to have the world's largest strip club and the world's largest gay bar, but Vegas also claims to have the world's largest strip club, and Minneapolis also claims to have the world's largest gay bar. So who knows which of these things is true, but Windsor is a party anyway.
Yeah, we had a couple of cases in Detroit. There you go. Yeah, exactly. As long as those were cases of Grolsch, I think you're in great shape. All right, now this might be some trouble. They both paired their six.
Well, that's really some trouble now.
Yeah, because they
Are they
got
going
it
to be
up and
passive enough to stay out of trouble here? Oh, that's not good.
ooh boy.
I don't think he's going to go broke here, but
Yeah, two pair for Michael, but it
yeah,
does
you
give
can't
the
even
straight to
raise.
Kathy.
You can't even raise. Yeah,
And he knows it too.
oh,
Look at
and he
his body
folded. Yeah, look
language,
at
eh?
that.
Wow. Disciplined
Yeah,
fold.
good fold.
Michael with the soul read.
And the only thing he's beating there is a worse two pair, and there aren't many of those.
Mm-hmm. Good
So
point.
it's an understandable fold there. It's just a tough one to make.
Yep.
But if you know your opponent, and they're going to have a hand there. You can't. They're not going to call. What are they going to call with if you raise?
Right. Yes. And I think people get stuck on the idea that I have a good hand, so I'm going to raise. But you really have to factor in, what's your value target? What is the opponent going to have that they can actually pay you off that doesn't beat you? So even
Yeah,
having a really good hand doesn't necessarily mean that a raise is going to be the right choice there.
I like to have my students play covering up their hole cards for a little while.
Mm.
Play small buy-in, sit and go small buy-in tournament stuff, and I find it really is effective at understanding what where you have to be to get people to call, you know, finding fold equity, all those kinds of things. And I actually made a training video years ago for Poker X Factor when they were still a thing,
Mm.
uh, about where I did that, and I played I won a sit and go with my whole cards covered, and you see me open fold kings, and talk about finding fold equity the whole way through. I was pretty
Right.
pleased with myself about how the video came out, and it
That's
was a very
great.
popular video for about 2 weeks, and then Annette Oberstad won a 180 man or a 90 man sit and go with her whole cards covered, and
Oh.
posted it on Poker X Factor. And then
Oh
nobody ever heard of my video
no.
again.
Oh, that's terrible. That's
But
terrible.
hers was really a great. I mean, she was the perfect person for that. She was hyper aggressive, really good fold
Yes.
hunter, and her hand history was great for learning about that.
That's great. I can see how that would be really valuable. Just learning how to play the board texture and the betting lines and kind of
Yeah.
reading the action. That's super important, obviously. So
We used to
Michael
do
found. So go ahead. Yeah,
we used to
Michael
do
found the double up there. Queens versus ace.
yeah we used to do a weekly kind of a learning podcast kind of thing where it was a seminar where I would do like a half hour 45-minute presentation, and then everybody could ask me questions about the seminar, and then everybody could ask me questions about whatever poker stuff they had questions
Mm.
about for the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I do 2 or 3 of those a week on Poker X Factor, and then we would play a tournament after. And then it was a tiny little free roll tournament where people could win a few bucks, and there'd be like a bounty on me. And one week when I was talking about GTO and fold equity, I just decided to leave the stream running and let people see my hole cards. And I took fourth out of 38 people.
That's fantastic.
And it was really, a lot of people said it was very instructive to just see and hear my thoughts about how I would go through it. There was I had Jack high, and somebody raises the button, and I'm in the small blind, and I just rip it in. I had Jack 8, and I was like, well, if he calls, I've got Jack 8, but he actually knows that I have Jack high, so he doesn't expect me to be shoving here. It's not going to change his opening range any, and his opening range is going to be way below Jack 8 a lot. This is profitable with 17 big blinds, and I just rip it in, and the guy's looking at my hand, and then he shows 10 high and folds.
That's great.
And a bunch of
Well,
spots where I open shoved in spots where yeah, you can see my hand. It's King 7, but
what are
you
you
got to
going to
have a
do?
hand to call me anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's huge difference between being the one shoving and the one having to call. Even if they've got decent equity,
Yeah.
they're going to lose they're going to lose a significant portion of the time. So it really does put people in a tough spot. JB Twin City says that those cases in Detroit, unfortunately, they were legal cases. They were not cases of Walsh. So my condolences to that. That sounds like a much less fun experience in the great city of Detroit.
Yeah, that's most people. If you catch a case in Detroit, it's not bad.
So I like seeing
in my neighborhood, the cops didn't come to my neighborhood, so it wasn't a problem.
It's very respectful.
Yeah, didn't have to worry about being arrested.
So here we are. We're back at it. Kathy again has a bit of a chip lead. The blinds are going up, so our effective stack is just about 25 big blinds. Kathy's got a little over 30, and we see Michael leading out with second pair and getting called by a pair of sevens there on the turn, and that is going to make it a very even match here. These two are neck and neck.
Yeah, real
going
close.
into the 71-40 level.
And this is interesting. I've done commentary on live tournaments a bunch of times, and I've done commentary on my own play online. And I've done commentary on other people's, like on my students. Sometimes my students will send me hand histories and I'll make videos of the hand histories of me talking about them. But I haven't done commentary on a live online match like this. And the problem is the action is so fast.
It's
so
fast,
much faster than live that you really have to be on it.
And we've learned that over the years doing this. Some good spots are just going to get missed. Unfortunately, we just can't keep up with it. But it is great just being able to
rip it in with the deuces. Gotta rip it in there.
Oh, he's dominated now.
He had 24 big blinds, and he gets raised in somebody who's raising a ton of buttons. You just gotta rip it in.
And is that like the magic number there, Chris, or like the low 20s when it comes to stack size? It's just
that's when you start. I mean, it's okay to sometimes flat in that 20 to 25 range, but not with two deuces. Not against anything more than a min raise. Just rip it in there. And never against anything, no matter what your hand is. If it's more than a min raise, it's a rip it or fold. And with two deuces, you're not gonna you can't set mine with that. I think you're almost better you're probably better folding it than calling with it.
Well, this might see some fireworks here. Again, that's super small sizing on the 3-bet for Michael. I think Michael's got to up his sizing on his 3-bets, given that he's out of position. He's not really putting Kathy to a difficult decision. She's going to continue with virtually 100% of her opening range there. So
yeah, especially when you have ace 10 offsuit, you're not going to hit it. There's not going to be a lot of flops you love. Better to end the hand now. Rip it in there.
He does pick up a pot, and again, just a super small chip lead, but a chip lead nevertheless. Michael has Kathy just covered. Or actually, no. Once they're both in, it's boy, there really are neck and neck here. Yeah, this one could go either way. And we've got pocket fives versus queen 10. Oh boy, second pair versus bottom set.
Michael's going to be real grateful that ace is out there.
Yeah, it might slow him down just enough, right?
Yeah, the only way he doesn't go broke.
Kathy's taking her time, puts out just less than half pot size bet, and gets the quick call from Michael.
Given that there's no draws on the board, I would check here if I were Kathy. Check here and hope that he wants to bet an ace or a queen, or that if he checks behind, then you're going to get called when you bet on the river.
Otherwise, very disciplined fold.
Yeah, she let him get away from it. If she checks there, he either bets or he calls a bet on the river.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I wonder if she was just trying to get every chip in.
Sure. She probably. Well, she sees the ace on the board, and if he's got an ace, you want to make sure you get it all in. People then are always failing to see through their opponent's eyes. If he's got an ace, you're getting it all in anyway.
Good point. Great point.
Hand relevance is super important. If you can't affect the size of the pot against a particular hand, ignore that hand. It's not part of their range anymore. Just treat it as if it can't exist.
Love it.
If the flop is 3-3-4 and then the turn is a 4 and you've got 2 3s, are you ever going to fold 2 quad 4s? Right. If the answer is no, then treat quad 4s as if they're impossible, because all the chips are going in if they have quad 4s and you're just good for them. And then play as if you're playing against a 4 or kings or whatever else might pay you off. Just worry about the hands where you can affect the pot size.
That makes perfect sense.
And honestly, if it's a 4, you probably can't affect the pot size either. You're just going to bust that person. So you play as if you're, facing bluffs and overpairs, and play against those hands. The other hands don't matter.
Yeah, we should always be trying to influence the parts of our opponent's range that are influenceable. If they're going to take a certain line, no matter what you do, then you don't even need to factor them in.
Yep.
So
When I
here
work
we
with
get,
it's an
yeah,
interesting. Oh, she folded.
yeah,
Some
you
very
did it.
disciplined folds in this match.
Yeah, and again, that's a real small sizing for Michael. Though I think when the stacks get this small, you can start sizing down your bets and raises post flop because you're still leveraging a lot of fold equity against your opponent's stack.
Yeah. When I work with students on getting past hand ranges and how to play against those ranges and break those ranges into, the easiest way for me is to break those ranges into chunks. And how do I play against all the flush draws? How do I play against and so they'll have like the draws, the made hands, the monsters, the made hands that beat me, whatever. But once you break those into chunks, the first lesson is find all the chunks that are irrelevant immediately and throw them out. And that is a thing that can become second nature, and you don't even think about it anymore. So it's really a valuable skill to work on because you're adding something to your poker abilities that you don't have to think about. That doesn't require any brain processing power. It just becomes automatic. And every time you can do something like that, that's just giving yourself a raise forever. Whereas if you're learning skills that you have to think about at the table, you've got to prioritize them and figure out which ones you're going to think about now. And does it bump another skill out, or will another skill bump this skill out? Whereas when it becomes second nature like that, that's just an instant raise. Now you're going to make more money forever.
I love that. I'm personally not a huge fan of thinking at the table, so this is great news for me. I'm just going
to. Well, the Grolsch is really helpful with that.
Speaking of which, we're getting down to the bottom of two here. I hope this match is getting closer. Yeah. I'll be outpacing our
these guys got to hurry up, or you'll be drinking warm Grolsch.
You can't have that. Although it's still Grolsch. It's even good warm. Come at us, Grolsch. We need the sponsorship money. It's not too late.
I don't know if I've ever had it in a can.
Oh, it's so much better in the bottles. I mean, the swing top bottles are pretty hard to beat. That's such a cool part of it. I've probably got like 1,000 of those empties up at the cottage. They're all like candle holders and book stops and that kind of stuff. They collect well. Oh, this must be it though. Pocket eights versus pocket aces. 16 big blinds effective. We get the min raise from Michael, and I'm sure we're going to see some fireworks here. What sizing do you like from Kathy here, Chris?
A flat or that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like.
Oh my God!
Unless an ace is going to come, then you'd rather flat and fold.
Well, just a cooler of a spot here.
So far,
Michael. Yeah, so far we don't. There is always room on the.
It's a lot of only available eights.
He used every eight.
Get in trouble.
He used every single one.
Yep.
All right. Well, Michael again takes the chip lead again. He's got about a half again as many chips as Kathy, and Kathy's got to be fuming there, getting her aces cracked on what should have been in her mind the last hand of the match.
Another hand with some possibilities.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be tougher for Michael to put any money in there.
Let's see if Kathy's been pushing her equity. She's been making a lot of value bets with second and even third pair on a lot of these boards.
Yeah, I think she's the best of the four players I've seen so far in terms of how she's been playing. At least in a little bit of time we've seen, at least in terms of how well she would handle better play. She would stand up to good players, I think, quite well. And I know she does play a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll be doing a rec poker meetup sometime in June when a bunch of us are down there. Chris, maybe you'll get a chance to meet her and some of these other fantastic folks in person if we can make the dates work. I know you're a busy guy around them, but we'll just see.
I'll probably have 4 jobs during that time, but
I know you're doing the photography and writing, plus I'm sure you're playing quite a bit.
2 years ago, I played $80,000 worth of tournaments and worked full time twice. We're essentially 2 full-time jobs. I took 40,000 photos.
Yeah, I bet you did.
$8,000 worth of tournaments, and I wrote 90,000 words.
Oh my God, he knows how to hustle, folks.
And I saw for most of August I slept.
Yep. Well, you
Cool.
got to stay busy in this industry. You've got your finger in a lot of pies. It's an exciting way to experience Las Vegas. It's just being involved in every organization that swings by, right?
That's right. I will learn to say no to projects at some point, but
Sure,
it
you will,
hasn't happened
Wallace.
yet.
Sure, you will.
That's what my wife says too. She just says when.
Yeah,
When?
right.
Okay.
Well,
Sure. When?
Michael's flopped the flush here, and Kathy's coming in with a second pair, and she's pushing that equity, like we said. She's putting chips
Yeah.
in. The
Here's where it gets.
four flush might slow her down.
Oh, you can't bet there, Michael. Gotta let her
Hmm.
herself there.
Yeah, he had the nut.
Not
He had the nut high.
yeah, there's not very many hands can call that bet. And the
We're
ones that
getting some.
will all bet themselves.
Yes, that's another good point about how that part of the range will respond either way. We're getting some Canadian assaults in the chat here. Chris Jones saying the cottage is my favorite Canadianism. I know you guys use the word cottage down there in the States from time to time. That's not a purely Canadian thing, but I do appreciate the ribbing. And
Use
our
it to
producer,
describe a type of cheese. That's the
ah,
that's the only time we use it.
are you like a cabin or a camp guy, or what do you
Well,
call that
I
place
mean,
out?
in Minnesota, it's the cabin. It's the cabin up north.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And then
that's very
if
popular.
it has more than like 4 rooms, then it's a lodge.
Lodge, yep, also very popular.
But
Um,
everybody in Minnesota has a cabin up north. It's when I moved to Minnesota, I was shocked how I was the only person I knew that didn't have a cabin up north somewhere.
yeah, and it's always up north, no matter where you are in the world. It's always up north. I think
Yeah.
that's interesting. Um, a shout out from Taylor saying "Bless your cotton socks" is still his favorite Canadian expression. Although I maintain that's a very popular expression, and I'm not weird for saying "Bless your cotton socks." People hear it all the time, perfectly normal. Moving on, here we
That's a
are in Mayo
Canadian
Lynch
thing, huh?
Park. I don't think so. I think it's like Boxing Day. It has a lot of uses just outside of the United States.
I see.
Personally, that's my take. That's my take. But yes, bless your cotton
So
sauce.
it's like gun control and
Oh
nationalized
shit!
healthcare.
I'm
Every other
not.
developed nation uses it, but we don't. It's one of those
I'm
things.
not going anywhere near that one, Chris. I'm not going anywhere near that one. You need a few more girls for that. Okay, now this might be it here. We've got a pair of jacks versus a pair of aces. Kathy is all in, and she needs a
Makes
little
a
help.
flush.
Cannot
Went with
make
a
it
flush.
on the river. Michael Babker is our winner of the second match of the night. Congratulations, Michael. Taking down Kathy Chang, a fantastic player, and I'm very pleased that Michael was able to pull that out. It's just great to see these members that are getting more involved and finding success in the streets, in the poker streets. So
Time to
congratulations
eat the
there,
last of my carrots.
Michael Babker. Oh well, it's a good time, Chris. If you have to go do a carrot refresh,
Yeah, no, last of my carrots are going now.
okay. And I think Chris Jones actually guessed the hand there, which was Ace Nine. And if memory serves, Chris Jones also picked a winning hand last week. So Chris is really on a roll here. Chris, I'll remind you that all you need to do to claim your prize as he opens Grolsch number 3 for the third match is send that email, jim@rec.poker, and we'll set you up with an amazing prize, Chris Jones. See, the funny thing is, Chris has access to pretty much everything that we do here at Rec Poker because he's so plugged into everything that we do here, all our training sites, all our great partners. He runs our own training material, so he's kind of letting us off cheap by winning the competition here for these draws because I don't want to like tell tales out of school, but it's possible that Chris Jones might not even get a prize because he's already so plugged into everything here. But yeah, Chris, send that email. See if we can work something out for your fantastic efforts here, uh, guessing the winner, the winning hand, which, as we say, is easy to do. It did not have the 10 of clubs in it this time, but our next match here is about to come up. Once the one and only Chris Fox Wallace, and there's no rush here. He's going to go find some more carrots or maybe some goat cheese or some chorizo sausage. And yeah, Chris, I see you typing away in the chat there. You let me know, buddy. Jim at rec.poker, and you will be. I'll set you up with all the goods because we do some pretty great prizes here. I guess I'll just take a second here while Chris is on Carrot Watch. I'll encourage our watchers and listeners to make their guess for the winning hand. This next this next match is going to be Joe Elvita Koulis versus Keith Monkey System Brandt. I mentioned at the top, Joe is starting a new monthly study group here at Joe Cool PhD's Poker Psyops, which is going to be a lot of fun. And Keith Brandt already has his monthly Monkey Systems off-table tools session, which is a great way to learn about some resources out there, software, programs, apps. Keith takes a look at different off-table tools every month that you can use to sharpen your game. So I encourage folks, if you're already a Rec Poker Premium member, go and check that out. And if you're not already a Rec Poker Premium member, I got to ask, why haven't you tried it out yet? For God's sake, you get your first month for only $5 using the code Rec Poker, and you can come join all the fun that folks like Keith and Joe and Chris Jones and Taylor and I and everyone else who's involved here at Rec Poker are having. It is a lot of fun. You can get a free account by just going to rec.poker anytime. All it takes is an email address and a smile, although both are mandatory. But the premium membership is where the real fun happens, so come give us a try. All right,
Does
well,
the
I think
premium membership require a smile?
Well, you kind of have to be a community member in order to become a premium member. So the smile's like grandfathered in.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. Bad news for you. I know you were excited about that. I'll talk to someone on the leadership panel and see if we can make an exception. I think, although from what I understand, WSOP bracelet winners can pretty much just go anywhere they want in the poker world and do anything they please. Isn't that true?
And to not smile.
Yeah, like, you've got enough to smile about, Chris. Don't give me that. Well, let's line up our next match here. I see we're already starting to get some guesses in there. And we're going to start it up here. You're going to see Joe Cool in the top of your screen and Monkey System in the bottom of your screen. Again, we're starting with 100 big blinds and lots of room to run. I see some folks are putting their guesses in there already. That's great. So here we're seeing Joe start off with a 2x open and gets the fold from Monkey System. I'm always interested to see the sizing choices that players make for these open raises and how they change over the course of stack depth.
And Monkey's opening 9-5 offsuit, so he's a 100% opener.
He's a very aggressive, yeah, he's a wide and aggressive player. Yeah,
95% opener anyway.
Yeah, he studied a lot of the GTO ranges, and I know that they're typically wider than a lot of our recreational players or feel comfortable playing.
Yeah.
But he knows all those little hidden spots to get every ounce of EV out of the hand that he can. This one might get messy. We'll see Joe open up here 2.5 and
3-bet queen jack suited. You got to flat that.
It feels, yeah. I mean, it's one of those hands like we were talking about before that benefits so much from seeing a flop.
Boy, 3-bet anyway. He's not going to like this.
So good. So this is it. I think some of our players, they get stuck on this sense of we're playing heads up, so I have to promote my hands from calls to 3-bets, from folds to calls, from small bets to big bets, just because we kind of hear all this rhetoric about how wide ranges are and how you have to hold on tight with hands and that kind of thing. So I think people start 3-betting just more widely than they would otherwise. And it sounds like from what I'm hearing from you, Chris, they'd be better off being much more polarized in that three betting range and calling with more of those kind of strong but middle of the range hands. Am I oversimplifying that?
Maybe, but it's still true. Um, yeah, I mean, it's okay if your range is a little polarized for your three betting, but it's that leaving all the middle of the pack stuff for your flatting range is the problem. Then you're very readable there. You know, that's a much bigger information leak on that side of things. So, you know, just occasionally mixing in flatting with a big hand, or if you're just playing one heads up match, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to figure out what your strategy is for you know, in one session. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah. How
If you're playing
important is
somebody,
that?
you know, heads up all the time, then you have to worry about those things.
So, I mean, do you is that strictly true? I mean, should we just abandon the sense of balance if we're playing in a small sample size situation and just focus on exploiting 100%?
The GTO nerds will be very angry with me if I say yes, but yeah, why not? You know, for me, I worry about GTO depending on how good my opponents are. If I'm at a table full of world-class crushers, I'm playing as close to GTO as I know. I'm trying to think about what a solver would do in every situation. If I'm playing at a table full of fish and you know, a bachelor party just stumbled into the win and sat down at my 2-5 table, then I'm never playing. GTO doesn't mean anything to me now. I'm just going after those guys. And then everything else is somewhere in the middle. But it's really based on my opponent's skill level. And even with individual opponents, you know, I got free bet in a big spot in the World Series main event on like day 3 by Jason Kuhn a few years ago. And I just thought, what does a solver do here? Because Jason's a solver. Like he's that, like he's as good as it gets. I think he might be the best no limit player in the world. And I, you know, I'm certainly not going to try to be a step ahead of him. But then most of that table was really soft. And so most of the day I'm playing exploitive poker as long as Jason's not involved.
Right. Yeah, we talked about it sometimes in terms of GTO is more about playing defense when you have to worry about playing defense, and otherwise you should kind of just stick to offense. Is that roughly accurate?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. The other reason to know your GTO is just because if you don't know the foundation, you don't know when people are making mistakes. So how do you know what to attack? You know, you can be a better exploitive player if you understand unexploitable play better. And you see somebody make something that you know is a mistake. That's a pretty big hand.
Yeah, that King of Diamonds might have really ruined Joe's day because he could have gotten a lot of chips out of this if that was the King of Hearts or a different king. Monkey system making the straight here is going to put him in a tough spot depending on Joe's sizing. So he makes it very callable, and the board just runs out worse and worse.
Monkey can put a big amount of chips in now.
Yeah. So Joe's got a value bet here, though, right? He's got the nut. He's got the.
In fact, it's against the rules in many tournaments.
Broadway, yeah, exactly. He's got the royal flush here, so
yeah,
he's going to make it count. And
so I think a 6-card royal, you get some sort of bonus too.
Is that like the same kind of bonus you get for a 3 pair?
Yeah.
So another tricky spot, 10-9 versus Jack-10. It looks like on this hand, it's not going to be much of a factor, but we've seen this a lot tonight. These two players getting in there, just getting pipped by each other, and that can be a minefield for this heads-up play. Yeah,
this, you know, like so many of the hands tonight, this boils down to first aggression. Whoever wants to take a stab at it first is going to win.
And yeah, Joe's checked twice, and Keith senses weakness and decides to pounce and put it out there. And Joe's
not having it.
He said, "Yeah, that's right. I know I've got a weak range here, so 10 high is closer to the top of it than."
I'll take my 6 outs, and then he checks. When you check behind with Jack high and win, that's right.
But you can see how close Joe was to. I mean, it was one pip away from from being good there. So yeah, and they're
But he
joking
was
about it.
but he was beat by way more than 90% of his opponents.
Yes. Yes, good point.
He just happened to have a hand that was slightly below the very bottom of his opponent's range, pretty much.
And Keith has taken a bit of a chip lead here. Now we're starting off at about 90 to 70, so still tons of room. And I'll be curious to see again how our players adjust their open sizing to the diminishing chip stacks here. Joe's got pocket twos and goes for the 2.5. I expect we'll see a call from Keith here with 7-6 offsuit. Another one of those boards where heads up is the kind of a situation where you expect Joe to kind of see bet and probably just take it away a lot of the time.
You have to when you have a small pair like that. Your hand is always so vulnerable. If a queen comes, you have the nut low.
Yeah, good point.
All there's so many bad runouts can happen for you on top of your opponent always having 6 outs.
Joe's got top pair here and checks, and he's going to be checking a lot.
Yeah, he's very tricky.
Mm-hmm. Not a great
I think
card.
he understands he's playing an aggressive opponent, and he's just letting that happen. Well, that's going to be a good size pot.
Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we've got the 4 and the 9 in play here. So this is probably, I think Joe's got a bet here.
I can't believe there's not a raise from the 9.
I was just going to say the same thing. Yeah. Wow.
Are you afraid of the 9-10?
Well, manages to keep it civil, keep it friendly. We'll see what Joe wants to do here with his suited king, 2.24. Another kind of wet dynamic board here. Joe's got a pair of twos. He's going to bet there, put 3 big blinds in and preserve that.
For the same reason with the king deuce there as if you had 2 deuces and the board was 10-8-3. Your hand is very vulnerable there. It's maybe slightly less vulnerable with the king in your hand, but it's still primarily you have to end the hand now or find out that you're beat now. It's a fine hand to bet fold because you don't have any equity you're folding away if you get raised on a board with no draws on it.
Mm-hmm. Which is the power of being able to continuation bet, particularly in position. Just makes life easier when you've got range advantage and position.
That's why we're playing 90 to 100% of our hands on the button and 50 to 60 on the big blind.
Yep. So very similar hand strengths here. They're both kind of playing with the gut shot and middling high cards here, but no one feels particularly good about this spot. We got a C bet from Keith and a quick call from Joe.
The Queen 8 King 10 is a Canadian gut shot.
So, oh yeah, he got me there.
He did turn a royal draw and then won the pot, so worked out.
Yeah, our gut shots are worth about like 73% of your gut shots. So yeah. It's a slightly different calculus.
But they're nicer.
They're prettier.
Yep.
They look better.
Yeah. And again, better healthcare, lower murder rate. Less fascism.
Oh, Jesus.
I'll teach you to invite me on a podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, less fascism for now. I mean, who knows what the future holds? It's a big, big wide open world.
It's been true the last couple 100 years, but it could change. Could change anytime. If the maple syrup mafia is the scariest fascism in your country,
well, they are the movers and shakers. I'm just gonna say, but don't make any enemies in the maple syrup mafia. You're gonna end up in a very sticky situation, Chris.
That's almost clever.
Thank you. Almost clever is actually a great compliment around here.
And the name of my next bluegrass band. I would not make enemies of the maple syrup mafia just because I
Hmm.
love maple syrup so much. I
Hmm.
wouldn't. They could just cut me off, and it would be
No,
all
you
good.
don't want to invite a boycott like that. That's
No,
there's no winning for you there. There's no
no,
winning. No. We got two pair for Monkey. He leads out for Pot on the river,
can't
and
get called there.
yeah, can't get called is the problem.
He was
But
hoping his opponent had a 10.
still manages to win a pot, and he's putting down about again a half again chip lead here for Keith
And
over
growing.
Joe Cool, and growing at this rate. Yeah, when you flop trips, that's a pretty good outcome. And he just wants to build the pot a little bit here with a small bet when checked to. Joe's gonna really think over. He's listening to you earlier, Chris. He's got queen high and heads up pot, and it's a pretty dry board, so it's pretty attractive to see bet. But he sniffs it out and lets it go. Now we got two monster hands going head to head, 2-4 versus 3-5 offsuit.
Straight draw if you run them together.
That's true. This is a 4-card game. We might really be in trouble. Keith is opening to 2x now that the effective stack's just a little over 60 big blinds. And a pretty good,
pretty good flop again.
pretty good flop for both these guys. Yeah.
Speaking of the 4-card game, does this play poker now thing do anything other than hold 'em?
That's a good question. Chris Jones, if you're watching, and I know you are because you're typing in the chat. Yes, he says they do Omaha too. So there you go. Go check it out. It is a great platform. Any interesting games? Yeah, you'll have to go check it out, Chris. Go check it out at poker.now. It is a fantastic platform, and they've been a part of the Rec Poker group for a few years now. I think we had. He says that they said they were working on Horse, but not yet. So it's in the backlog. It sounds
like. Are you able to create hand histories there and like make a hand play out?
I don't think so, because that would be great.
That's the feature I would really like to have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did a 22 video series for Red Chip like a couple years ago, where I had to create all the hands and share my pair.
Share my pair. I remember, yeah, because that
was
a good platform.
It was fun, but it was not a quick and efficient way to create hand histories.
And if you wanted to change anything, you had to go all the way back to the beginning. I remember that being a pain in the butt.
And now Share My Pair is gone. And I found one or two other things, but none of them are any good. They're not very efficient. And if somebody made something like that, I think it would be used, and I would certainly use it. I would love it. Just allow me to create a hand history, and the machine doesn't need to know who won. I can just tell it all the things that happen. It doesn't need to even do any calculations. Just let me put cards in, and things happen that I can click through and put on a video, because places want me to make more of those videos, and I just tell them I can't.
Well, Mark Prashant, if you're listening, Mark Prashant used to be our technical director, and he had a bunch of great ideas about poker programs and apps and that kind of thing. There's a void in the market, Mark. Jump in there. Let's create the next hand history creator. Pet Vet says you can get the hand history from these tournaments in the log, but you can't create a hand history. And Chris says, yeah, there's no good way that he knows to create a clean and easy hand history, but it's much needed by the industry. Yeah, sounds like it.
There are a couple. There's one thing that makes hand histories for Poker Stars, and then you can replay it in their replayer. But none of them are where they should be. They're not easy. And I think it would be, maybe that's the thing to work on for Rec Pokers.
Yeah,
would be a big draw.
Well, I mean, John Somsky is a programmer, and from what I understand, he has a lot of free time on his hands. I mean, he's only running like 10 or 11 home games a week for us here at Rec Poker, plus all the Papes stuff that's going on over there. So, and I think
he's a sharp guy. He can handle all that.
Yeah, he has a full-time job. Plus, I think he might be like renovating or building a home or something like that. So, maybe on Sundays, John, you can start putting this new app together. Get together with Mark Prashant and see what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, get his goons involved. That's right. Chris
It's a
Jones. So
bad river
Somsky's Goons.
for King 7.
Yes, very true.
He had Joe drawn to 3 outs, but there they were.
Insta call.
Yeah, 20-1 ain't never.
Oh, Eric Anderson makes a great point here. Voice activated. That would be a nice feature. Then Chris Wallace could just kind of recite the hand histories into the program.
Yeah.
And have it put it together. I like that. That's a great tweak.
Which Eric Anderson is that?
It's
Minnesota. There's like 6 of them.
There's like a crazy number of Eric Anderson. This one's the cool one.
Oh, okay. I like him.
Eric's been a premium Rec Poker member for a long time, a prolific poster in the forums, and a frequent guest on our forums edition of the podcast as well. He types in that he's in Colorado right now, so he's the coolest Eric Anderson that's living in Colorado that I am aware of.
I know that there's Eric Anderson. He used to work for the MSPT.
Yes.
And then there's Eric Anderson. There's another Eric Anderson that I've met at the world's biggest home game in northern Minnesota. Brought some amazing dessert as a potluck thing. Like I know like at least 3 Eric Andersons in the poker world.
They seem like
live in Norwegian.
They seem like a strong group. They seem like nice people, these Eric Andersons. In my experience, in my limited experience, they seem like fun
sample size, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sample size will get you.
It looks like they're both 100% button raisers because I'm looking at a 3 deuce up there.
Yep. Yeah, and Eric says there was another Eric Anderson in my high school. We used to blame each other for everything. Yeah, that's a smart play.
Fair enough.
That's the smart play. I like that. Yeah. Chris Jones says there are no Chris Joneses, but yes, good people. There are a surprisingly large number of Chris Joneses out there. It's true.
I would think there would be.
Like it's just a ton of Chris Joneses. Quality folks, though, I will say. Again, small sample size, but the ones that I've encountered personally, I've quite enjoyed.
I haven't known another Chris Wallace, but if I win the main event twice in a row, I'll still be the 3rd most famous Chris Wallace. Oh yeah, look at that.
Here we go. Well, this is going to get interesting. We've got bottom set for Keith and an overpair with pocket 9s for Joe. Joe's pushing the action here. Gets a click back raise with bottom set and snap call.
Now it's going to be even harder for Joe to get away from it.
Yeah, Joe picks up the open-ended straight draw.
And Monkey might just want to shove here with all those draws out there.
Joe's got less than a pot size bet back, so Monkey's really putting him to the test here. And it's going to be hard for Joe to put him on a 10 because he's blocking a lot of the 10x combos he'd have there with his pocket 9s. He's really thinking about it.
The 20 looks scarier than a shove would.
Mm-hmm.
The shove looks more like a draw, and the 20 looks more like, oh no, I'm in real trouble here. But it's hard to fold with the straight draw and the pair of 9s. And
he knows he's got outs. He's got like 23% equity here on the turn. Let's see the river. It is no luck for Joe. And just like that, match 3 is over. Oh my God. And I am really falling behind here on the Grolsch count. So
you better get on it.
I'm going to have to get on it. But congratulations to Keith Monkey System Brandt. Condolences to Joe Coolis there. But that did seem like a bit of a setup. That's a tough spot where Joe had to feel like he was getting it good on the flop and just had no luck on that one, unfortunately. But another good match. We see 2 other players who aren't afraid to get involved and to get their chips in the middle. And that leaves only one remaining match tonight. Chris, I'm getting a little sad that our time here is almost at an end. I've been having such a great time, and I feel like we're 3/4 the way in. I could keep doing this all night.
You northern people are so nice. You're so nice.
So match 4 is coming up.
We better take it. Looks like match 4 could end up going a long way. I don't know. So I better take a break for a minute.
Yeah, that's a good point. Why don't you go re-carrot just in case?
Right.
I want Chris Fox Wallace to have 100% of the carrots in play by the time we start this next match here.
Just
I
a
mentioned
carrot in a chair.
a carrot in a chair, as that popular expression goes. That's all you need, just a carrot in a chair, or I think it's actually a chip and a carrot. Uh, as long as you're using the carrot as a seed, or is it a chip and a seed? We'll get there. We're gonna figure this out tonight. We're gonna figure this out tonight. We've got some fun comments in the chat here. Yeah, that was a great match. I know, Eric, I'm behind on the beer. I'm gonna have to really crush this one here. And since I'm the only one talking right now, it's not a great time for me to be just silently chugging a beer back. So I'll wait for Chris to find all the carrots in Phoenix and return to the room here. Yeah, that's it. Eric, Dave, go get some chips. Exactly. And so Mouse Anderson, that's Eric Anderson. He's already putting his guests in. I encourage everyone else to go do it. This is the final match. It'll be Charles Allen versus Eric Jin, B Chip versus Binkley. Yeah, you need a chip. You need some Doritos, Dave. That's exactly right. Um, he said, "How many bracelets do the chip and a seat crowd have?" Yeah, that's Chris Jones asking the real questions here. Um, so, folks, put your guesses into the chat here. If you can guess the winning hand of this match, you will win a prize. If you're not a Rec Poker Premium member, it'll be a month of premium membership here at Rec Poker. If you are already a premium member here at Rec Poker, that unlocks a whole new tier of prizes available to you. We, as you know, with our Learning with Partners programs, we deal with some of the best training sites in the world, sites like Solve for Why, Red Chip, Learn Pro Poker, the Poker Forge. There's just a ton of great organizations, pokercoaching.com, that we do work with here that know how important recreational poker players are to the game. And so one of the benefits of being a premium member here at Rec Poker is that you get a chance to go behind the scenes and check out some of the premium training material from these other training sites, all included with your Rec Poker premium membership. That's how you can kind of get a sense of the different coaches out there, the different training programs, the different training sites, the way that they communicate, the way that they teach. Gives you a chance to find the right fit for you, because here at Rec Poker, we're a great place to get started, to learn more about the game, to study along with our wrecking crew and our amazing premium members. But if you really want to take the next level and become a crusher on the felt, you got to go and work with some of the premium training sites out there, the folks that are bringing really top of the line training material to the recreational poker world. And we've got some great relationships with all those sites here at Rec Poker. So that's why we like to give away a free month every once in a while. Maybe that'll be one of the prizes tonight. So if you're already a Rec Poker Premium member, you can win a free month of membership at a lot of those great training sites. Also, some fantastic training tools like Range Trainer Pro is a great program that we're happy to be affiliated with. KL Cleaton is, aside from being a bit of a jerk, actually a really easy guy to get along with and to root for. And I think Range Trainer Pro is just a fantastic tool. One of the prizes available tonight if you are already a Rec Poker Premium member. So yeah, get your guesses in there. We're going to be, and of course, I should mention, this is week 3. This is the Elite 8 becoming the Final 4. But this is just 1 week in March. And next week, we're going to be joined by Rob, and you know him as the Poker Pastor, but Rob Gardner, who's been on the show recently. He's really involved with 100K Studios, and they're really making a push to get more involved with the recreational poker scene. Rob's a really fun guy, and I'm looking forward to talking to him in the booth here with me next week as we have our semi-final match, where the winners from tonight's show, which will be 5x5, and we'll see how it all plays out. But you'll get to see the winners from tonight all going head to head in our final 4 series of matches next week on March 23rd with Rob Gardner. That'll be starting at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern, and there will be 2 matches that week, followed by the finale on March 30th, where we'll have a best 2 out of 3 series for our remaining contestants, the 2 that make it all the way to go head to head for the crown. So I hope folks are able to join us for those. This has been super fun tonight talking with Chris Fox Wallace. And I think we're just about ready to get into the 4th and final match. So while Taylor just gets that set up, I think we can go here. So without a moment's delay, welcome to the action. So you're going to see Eric Binkley Gin at the top of your screen and Charles Beechit Allen at the bottom. Again, we're starting off with 4,000 chips on a 20-40 big blind level. So everyone's nice and deep. They've got 100 big blinds, and the action is kicking off here. We are going to find our final, the final remaining contestant is going to join our final 4 next week. Early advantage out to Charles Allen, who has flopped top pair and is in the driver's seat as we get started. Chris, do you have all your carrots? Are you fully equipped?
Yeah, and there's more. There are more downstairs if I need them.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. We don't want anyone running short here.
I'm terrified to play poker against someone named Binkley who's a clown. Sounds like something that belongs in your basement, not on.
Yeah, that's right. You see that one red balloon
Yep.
just floating up from the trapdoor. It all started
the clown.
It's the trapdoor to it's the trapdoor that leads down to the dark basement that really throws people off. They see a trapdoor, and all of a sudden they have all these negative connotations. But I keep mentioning it's storage. It's only for storage. It's nothing there. Innocent storage only. I assure you.
That's how you get things down to the basement faster. Well, that's a big hand now.
Oh yeah, we got top pair versus trips for Charles.
And nobody wants to.
Yeah, they're getting a little sneaky here, huh? So Charles has to bet this one, right?
You might have somebody tricked themselves out of a bunch of money, I think.
I think so too.
Especially when there's an ace on the board in this kind of situation. And with an ace and a couple draws out there, you have to be betting the turn. If your opponent has 8-9 and you don't get any more money out of them on the turn, or if they have an ace and you don't get a lot more money out of them, you're really missing out there. Yep. The value of being tricky in that spot is just not high enough.
And that's a good way to think about it, because it's always this trade-off between actually getting paid for the strength of your hand versus the sort of trickiness, the disguise that you have from slow playing. And I think sometimes people overemphasize how valuable that is. Ultimately, poker is a game about getting paid, and that should be what's driving your action, is getting paid with your value.
Most people could just almost never slow play the whole rest of their career and be fine.
Mm-hmm.
It really is overdone far too much. Mm-hmm.
Now we got a good comment here from the chat. Fox, you should also know, if you're worried about Binkley, he was a professional skydiving coach for a while, and actually is part of the record-holding skydiving most people in an arrangement record. I'm probably butchering the description for that, but he's a very impressive character and a great asset to us here on the Wrecking Crew. Eric Binkley Gin.
It would. It would be scarier for me if he was like a professional axe thrower or a.
Yeah, what's he gonna do? Jump out of a plane on you?
Yeah, go ahead. I have a roof. Fine.
I can hear the Minnesota in your roof comment.
Yeah. I lived there. I lived there long enough to pick some of it up. If he was a recluse, that would be probably the worst. What does he do for a living? We don't know. Lives in a cabin or cottage. Maybe he lives in a cottage.
It could be a cottage.
Where it is.
Yeah, neighbors say he mostly stuck to himself.
Yeah.
Well, this will be an interesting matchup. Eric's definitely been a student of poker for a long time. and he's very involved in our learning material here. Charles is a very strong recreational player. He lives out in the Canadian prairies, and there's a couple great card rooms near him. And he's always out there playing in the circuit events that come by. He's also not afraid to get his chips in the middle. And if he sees an opportunity to express an edge, he's going to take it. So I think we'll see a pretty aggressive match here as these two fellas unload on each other.
Yeah, he just did that took that one down with 5 high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not afraid to shoot his shot. Yeah, Evil Roy says, I think amateur axe throwers are even scarier. That's a really good point. The professional axe throwers, they're like at least involving a level of restraint. Those amateur axe throwers, you got to wonder, like, what are they working up to here?
Yeah.
You know?
Where's this axe going to go? Even if I don't make it mad, it could end up
going?
It could be accidental.
Bazing!
Clowns are the same way, though. Amateur clowns are much scarier than the pros.
That's a great point.
An amateur clown. Oh, yeah. Okay.
You know, amateur clowns was also this close to being the tagline for Rec Poker. I'm glad we went with play, learn, belong.
I wish you'd gone with that. That's better.
It was neck and neck for a while there.
I think amateur clowns is better. I might start a rival site now just to use.
You should. We also considered the blind leading the blind, but I still think play, learn, belong is better. But it was close. It was close.
If you do blind leading the blind, you can then have a picture of two blinds set up and then a button next to it.
We had it all photoshopped out. There was like banner ads or in post-production, but no, amateur clowns might take the cake though. Now I kind of, yeah, Chris Jones saying amateur clowns t-shirts or we riot. I'm going to write down amateur clowns because that's too.
If you guys don't make amateur clown t-shirts, I will. Just put poker chips. Just a clown face with amateur clown and then poker chips in the eyes.
Yeah, I like it. All right, we see the gauntlet has been dropped here, folks. You heard it here first.
I've started hundreds of businesses. Don't think I won't make t-shirts.
Oh, I love it. We managed to have a little fun here over at Rec Poker every once in a while. I will say that. All right, pair of twos takes it down for Binkley, but Charles still has the chip lead here, 3,200 to 4,600, so about 50% again. But at the 2550 level, there is still tons of poker to be played. And they are getting them in here. Charles has the open-ended straight draw, and Binkley's got top pair. Oh boy.
No chips went in.
No. These guys are getting very tricky on the flop. They're very trappy with big hands on the flop.
Or, well, sometimes it's easy to confuse trappy with wimpy. It could be.
Oh, good point.
Yeah,
good point.
Could be passive, could be sneaky.
I don't think these players would be categorized as wimpy, though. I do think knowing them, playing with them, they are on this the trappy side of that spectrum.
We have seen them both bet without a hand too, so
that's true. And Binkley's got a huge edge here because his camera is not activated, so he's going to get all these live reads from Charles Allen that are not reciprocal.
He should be getting paid in Canadian dollars.
I think that some sort of exchange rate would be appropriate. A little handicap rate or something for him there. So Binkley's got the pair. Charles is in position with ace king and getting led into this is kind of an interesting spot because he's gonna be ahead of part of Binkley's range there, but I think often Eric's gonna have a pair on a board like that when he leads that one.
The question would be, does he have a pair he can call with? Because you've got 6 outs if he calls, and so it's not a bad spot for a semi bluff in a heads up match. You know, if we did that in a 9-handed table, it would be insanity because your opponent's range is going to be so much stronger. But in a heads up match, you know, something to think about anyway.
And I think recreational players, they have some difficulty finding those I don't know, like turning those, they're not even necessarily showdown value, but some of those like unnatural bluffs. It's just not as natural a part of their game to kind of turn those hands into bluffs. Is there, when you're thinking about your entire range, like on the river, for instance, Chris, do you actually visualize the different segments of your range and which ones are value and which ones like are you visualizing your entire range and trying to like find good candidates for bluffs, or is it more intuitively you're just sort of like I know that the qualities of this hand make it a good bluff in this.
Because I've played so many different games and most of my poker career was before solvers, I tend to think about my opponent's range more than my own. And also that's where the money is. Um, if I want to beat the best players in the world, I probably need to be thinking more in terms of balancing my own range, but I don't. That's hard. I want to pay my mortgage, and and if I play with just the randoms down at the Win or Aria or something, then I don't have to think about those things, and I make the most money being very exploitive. And so I think about my opponent's range a lot more than my own, and that's the exploitive approach where I think this guy can only call. Say he's in that spot with the ace king against on the whatever low cards board that was. My given the stack sizes, my opponent's only going to call 30% of the time if I shove here, and when he does call, I've still got six outs, so I've got X equity. Sometimes I don't have six outs. Sometimes I'm going to be drawn dead. But
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, if I feel good about my read, and that's the calculation that I'm making on a day-to-day basis, right? I know how to think about my own ranges if I'm playing against very good players, and picture things that way and be balanced. But it's not something that I use on a day-to-day basis.
I really like the way you said that because we've kind of talked in the past about how um, sometimes you have to play your range versus your opponent's range when they are capable of thinking of ranges. But sometimes you can just play your hand against your opponent's range if they're not going to be forcing you to be balanced. It's kind of like we were talking about GTO versus exploitative
Yeah.
early. And the less
So,
experienced your opponent is, the easier it is to just kind of play your hand versus their range.
yeah. Sometimes you can also just play your opponent's range. Sometimes your
Mm,
hand doesn't matter at all.
true.
You
Like when
know.
you're saying about covering up your hole cards, you're really just finding their weak spots
Mhm.
and expressing that natural edge over them.
So I think about my opponent's range before everything else. That's an interesting hand with a top pair and a straight.
Mm,
The
hmm.
straight draw with the king overcard is pretty attractive here, and he raised. I'm
Puts.
surprised he didn't put it all in. It was essentially an all-in
Mm.
bet because he wasn't going to fold to a shove, but I'm surprised he didn't put it all in there.
I wonder if he thought it was scarier at the smaller
Could
sizing.
be.
Sometimes that is it. But a big
Absolutely.
chip lead here. A good chip lead here for Charles, who's got about a little more than 2-1. So still tons of big blinds left. No desperation mode, but Eric is on the wrong side of the chip stack at this point. And another, boy, we really do not want to see a king come here if you're a fan of Eric Jin, because that's going to be a nasty run out. Might have saved him.
Did save him, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Charles is maintaining that 2x open. And that's a board Eric's probably going to check about 100% of the time, I expect.
Should, yeah.
I'm a little surprised Charles didn't put a bet out there, but maybe with ace high, he feels like he can just get that to showdown often enough that it's going to be
Yeah,
good there.
I feel like the GTO play may very well be to check there, um, knowing that you can't call a check raise, that will get a lot of bluffs to come your way. You know, they,
Yep.
it also may be correct to bet there and then to always bet and always check the turn.
Right.
But when you watch heads up matches amongst the world's best players, you see them do all kinds of weird things too. They will mix it up in strange ways that are not GTO at all. Even like that. I did some analysis on the Jason Kuhn Phil Hellmuth heads up match. So I thought it was really interesting, and so I wrote some things about it. And then I worked on it for another pro that hired me to do some analysis on those guys. And
Cool.
and I know that Phil does weird things, right? I've played with Phil a ton of times, and Phil does weird things. But Jason did a lot of weird things too. Jason did a lot of very not GTO things, a lot of very like mixing it up, kind of strange plays, was trying new, and it's not trying new things for these guys. They'll say I'm trying new things today, but don't tell me you haven't tried that before. You've been playing poker for a living for 30 years. I know you've tried this before. Um, there's nothing new for me to try if I wanted to try some new things, but but they're doing different things than what we know are, solid, uh, solid foundation poker. So,
How much of that do you think was Jason adjusting to Phil's style, and how much of it do you think was just exploring some different branches of the decision tree that some of us aren't as used to?
my guess would be almost all of it was related to Phil. But I've been wrong a bunch of times in my life, and this could be one of them.
I've never seen it, never in my company, Chris. I just want that on the record.
It was when I was much younger.
Well, this is going to be a tricky spot. Eric's got aces and sevens, and Charles has aces to the 10. So Charles has been not slow playing, but he's been kind of playing a pot control game here out of position, checking again and letting Eric drive the action. Little does he know, he's drawing pretty thinly here. But Snap calls it off. He's got to feel pretty good about having top pair.
Sorry, my
it's going to be hard to get.
My tablet was not plugged in correctly and was running out of battery. I had to get that fixed. No. Okay.
And here we are. We're
in America. Things don't run on maple syrup. We use electricity for everything.
Yeah. Well, that has its upsides and downsides, from what I understand.
It doesn't taste as good.
Yeah. There's probably some downsides to being off the pine standard, though.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting spot for Eric. Okay, it just goes for a sort of a click back raise there.
Well, his click back was all in, so he his decision was pretty easy there.
It is
the interesting decision was Charles' bet sizing. You can go smaller and hope to get raised, but I don't know if he had a whole lot of choice either. I don't know if he could have done things drastically differently than he did. Sometimes when you're playing heads up, the game sort of plays itself, and I lost 3 heads up matches in a row to a horrible poker player one time.
Oh no, in a row, really?
In a row, it was horrible.
That's not fun.
I mean, a guy who's like down significantly over his life playing poker.
Just found the right cards against you.
Just made a lot of full houses. And
ouch.
Tough to sniff. And he's also like a maniacally aggressive player. So
right.
What am I gonna do when the guy makes a full house? I'm gonna just pay him.
Yep. And were those in what kind of time span did you?
It was 3. It was in a row. It was just 3. Like it was in the 3 matches took us 4 hours maybe.
Okay. Oh, I see. Yes, I understand.
I eventually won the money back and made a little bit of money from him, but it was a very frustrating 4 hours of, they were $1,000 heads up matches. I was down $3,000 against this bonehead that I knew I should be crushing. I was so excited to play.
Well, that's one of the great things about poker that gives the rest of us hope. It's one of these things that skill matters a lot in the long term, but luck is a factor hand to hand, and really anyone can compete with anyone on any given day. It's a blessing and a curse for this game that we love.
Yeah, and it can be a big factor in Hold'em. I mean, that's why we play Hold'em. Hold'em became the game because the variance is so high that the weaker players have a very good shot at winning. And I know people who, a number of people older than I am who were poker players and found out I had started playing poker for a living, and they would say, "Oh, I went out to Vegas and tried that, and I played a stud game and I lost all my money right away, and I never went back. And that's how
Right.
it used to be because
Yep.
the expert advantage is so high in stud. If you're playing stud high against an even remotely competent pro, and you're not, you're going to lose all your money every time, and then you're never going to play again. And with Hold'em, that's different. With Hold'em, that bad player can play for a couple hours and win money a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly no limit. I think like even limit Hold'em, you have to have an element of discipline and understand the math of when to not get that bet in. I understand that's a big part of it, and so the edge is bigger for the more experienced, savvier players because they kind of know some of those rules of the game. Whereas in no limit Hold'em, you can always just put those chips in the middle and turn it all around, right? Particularly heads up.
Yeah. In either game, the variance is much higher than it was in any of the other games that have been popular in poker. And then we've started to add games where the variance is even higher. In Omaha, the variance is much higher. In Big O and in Six Card and in Dramaha, it's crazy variance. And then some of the cap games, like some of the big games, are playing with a 20 big bet cap in games like Single Draw or Dramaha. Like if you're playing a 20 big bet cap in Dramaha, like half the table should be all in every hand. It's crazy
Right.
variance. And nobody has
Yeah.
like a big advantage when it happens.
Crazy
Long
game.
gone are the days of a table full of Raz grinders waiting for one guy to show up that isn't.
And I see we've already got our first Amateur Clowns t-shirt mock-up in the chat. If people want to go check that out, you can see Eric Anderson put a little something together on our Discord channel there. So
I want to cut for
take
the
one.
chips in the eyes suggestion.
No, there's still room to improve up to that level, Chris. You got the full royalty control on the chips on the eyes.
Excellent. Make
So a
him
pair of
make him cranberries too. Put 25K chips in his eyes, so he looks.
yeah.
That's he's a real psycho then.
Yeah, he's extra deranged. Yeah. So here we are.
This dude will murder you with an axe in a strip club and go get in his Lambo. This dude's
Yeah, Chris Jones agrees. Need the chips on the eyes for sure. That's okay, Eric. I liked your mock-up. I know you. Yeah, that's a lot to ask for one quick one here. So Charles still has a big chip lead here. This pot is probably not going to grow too much more, and Eric's got the top pair, putting out a little bet here, putting Charles to the test with pocket queens on ace, king, jack. He's thinking about it.
The small bet feels like a value bet, and that would have to be an ace or a king. But it's easier for me to say that looking at an ace in his hand.
Yes. Chris, let me ask you about that. So how often do you, not how often, under what circumstances do you go for a very small size bluff? Is it against certain opponents? Is it against certain boards? Because I think
that's a board range kind of situation more often than, but there are definitely opponents that I do that against, and in fact, it's a very profitable play. It's been done to me as well, and I know how frustrating it can be. Ari Engel bet one big blind into a 35 big blind pot in a tournament against me 2 years ago, and I paid him because I had third pair and he had second pair.
Right.
And he just knew that the only way he was going to get more money out of me was to just bet so small that I had to call it.
Yeah.
But then I did it last year a couple times in the cash games at the World Series. In like a 2-5 game, there was a guy who got really mad at me one day, and so I remember the hand really well. And the pot was $110, and I bet $5, and the pot was and the board was king, queen, jack, 10, 3
right
with suits. And
right.
And so I bet $5, and he called me with a 9.
Yeah.
And then he said, "That's like stealing my money." And I was like, "Yes, it is." And then he got really mad. And I got the whole "keep it up, buddy" speech, and he told me about
how that's a great. Oh yeah, I love that one.
I got 20 minutes of it, and I just kept telling him, "I'm sorry, I'm just not very good, and I didn't know how to bet it. I didn't know what to do stuff on it. I don't know how to do this." That's the like the best way to disarm people when they're doing that.
That's my favorite. My favorite for sure. I'll
Sorry,
just
it's
say,
not any
oh, I'm
good.
sorry. I'm just not very good at poker. You know,
Yeah, I didn't know better.
oh, it was.
Know better.
Should I have bet more there? Let me take this note down, friend.
Honestly, I'm just not that sharp. I know people get mad about it. I don't learn very quick, and
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of things.
Oh,
So
that's
please be
funny.
patient with me as I make these bad poker plays and take your money.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I
Oh yeah.
definitely will make that play, when that situation is perfect like that. And
Yeah.
then there are times to make the third of a pot bluff. But I'm just not betting a third of the pot with value hands very often on the river either.
Mm,
So it doesn't come up for me very often as a
yeah.
chance to make that like third of the pot bluff in a tournament.
Yeah.
When it comes up, it's usually against a weak player who I have a real good feel for, and I think was either this player's on a draw or they're never folding, and if they're on
Yes.
a draw, they're always just instantly folding, and so then a third of the pot on the river is a pretty great way to, you know, you get an amazing value if there's any reasonable chance they're going to fold.
Hmm. Well, we got a tough spot here. Both players have a 6 on 7, 8,
Yeah.
9, but Binkley's got the 5, 6, and something tells me. Oh yeah, Eric goes for.
Just put it all. What?
Whoa, wait a second. Did he
That had to be a
fold there?
misclick. That had to be a misclick.
I mean, there was 4 to a bigger straight on there.
No way he
If
folded down to 600 chips.
yeah, that'll be an interesting one. I can't wait
Yeah.
to talk to Eric about that hand afterwards, because he definitely had the low straight, and there was a 4 to a straight if
It was
Charles had a
certainly,
10 there, but
yeah, it was
but
certainly possible that he was
but
beat, but not,
he was getting pretty short.
yeah, it's
But
not
maybe
not
that's
not your usual bet fold spot for sure.
no, good point. So very, very interesting spot there. I can't wait to break that down. Maybe we'll do a forums edition of the podcast on that. Let's just make a little note. About 25 minutes in. Very interesting hand. Something tells me that he's going to put it in there, and he does. So we're going to see at least a few more hands here as Eric Jin picks up some. We don't know how this hand's going to finish yet, but he's going to win. So there it is. So about 11 big blinds left for Eric. He's moving uphill. Charles Allen has a ton of chips, but all it takes is a bench and a buy-in. That age old popular poker expression. Yeah,
Yeah.
as Taylor says, he's still got a chip and a seat. So that's all it takes. What
Well,
was the? It was a sofa and a what? A sofa and a. You threw a great one out there earlier.
I don't
Chris.
remember. Stack,
A sofa and a stack.
stack and a sofa.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Now this one might get juicy here. They both got a pair plus draw. Binkley's all in and drills it with the king.
Nice recovery.
Yeah, so still Eric's got a big chip lead, but it's not as big as it used to be. About 5,700 to 2,000. Now, one thing I've noticed a lot of our players checking flops out of position at a like near 100% rate. Chris, in heads up like this, when I know it's a little slightly different dynamic than full ring because the big blind player is going to be out of position post flop. Are there certain boards that you advocate leading on, or certain circumstances, or is it just wise to check virtually 100% of the time?
I know that solvers have lead ranges. The EV difference between having a lead range and not is really, really tiny. It's always below a tenth of a big blind, which is the lowest measurement on most of the pre-solves that I've worked with. So who knows? But It's very small. And
Mm.
so I haven't studied what those ranges should be. I understand how to kind of basically construct them, but if I were in that spot against a very good player, I would be having some leads. If if I knew it was a person who was going to be close to GTO correct, I would be certainly I would have some leads, and they would be uh, both monsters and uh, weak made hands that I didn't mind folding to a raise. So hands that you either want to build a huge pot with, or hands that you don't mind uh, folding away because you don't have
Yeah.
any equity when you're raised. You do it
Yep.
with those kinds of hands, and then check everything else, and you can check jam some of your monsters and some of your draws, and all depending on stack size. But
Yep.
you
Check
you
jam is
can
a no,
yeah.
please.
If you once you understand the basics of how constructing those balanced ranges on from your end work, and you understand what your goal is, then you can build them when you need to at the table. And I think that's a really valuable skill to have, because I don't have time to study all the GTO ranges anymore. Like, I just don't. I got things to do. And the really serious poker students are doing that, and they're learning
Mhm.
a ton of how solvers will do things, and they're emulating solvers pretty well. uh, Someone who's really great will make the same decision as a solver, maybe 75% of the time. Someone who really
Right.
studies them a lot, right?
Yep.
And someone who isn't, but plays fairly well, might be at 50%, and that's if you're playing heads up against that person, you're at a real disadvantage. So knowing how to build those ranges in your head at least takes a big chunk of that away. You won't get
Hmm.
to quite as good as they are, but you'll get most of it as long as you know how to do that. And it'll also help you just kind of understand what your opponent's likely to have if you're playing these very strong players who studied a lot with solvers, or even when they're being exploitive but want to have balanced ranges. I was a very unbalanced, exploitive player for a very long time, and have a friend who is a very GTO balanced player. And we
Hmm.
talked poker a lot, and we argued over it a lot. And I think that I was right, and I think that I'm not anymore. Um,
Hmm.
in the big games that certainly he's playing really big, and in the bigger games, I think he's right now, that
Hmm.
that you do have to have real GTO knowledge. You don't have to use it all the time, but it's not like your ability to adjust disappears when you learn a bunch of GTO stuff.
Good point.
It's not like suddenly when you see some dummy do some ridiculous thing, you can't adjust to like attack that. You still have that
Right.
ability. We're just talking about like where to spend your study time, and I think if you're playing bigger games, the GTO range stuff is where you should put a lot of your time, and then
Uh,
learning how to construct that stuff on your own, and how to work through those situations on your own. Well,
and
that's a hand.
like you said earlier, knowing where to deviate from, right? That's
Yeah.
always going to be helpful, no matter how you choose to play it.
And if nothing else, it can be really helpful to. I can't believe you checked behind with the
I
king
can't,
queen.
yeah,
That's
check,
real
check.
discipline.
That just went, I mean,
I
crazy
I am
check
a
back
hundred.
there.
I'm 100% losing another 1,500 in that fight.
Yeah, I thought so too. Wow. He must have just see Charles has his camera up, and I think, Eric must have a sense of what's going on there, because that was a crazy check back.
Evil clown looking right into his soul.
I think so. Yeah. That's a professional clown. Like, that guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, must be. That's, that's good. The amateur one's not good.
Yeah, ooh, scary.
Yeah,
What are they up to? What are
yeah.
they up to? What's
Why
their
do you have
angle?
Why do you have a concert? Are you a professional clown? No.
No. Oh, that's even scarier.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
ooh,
I have to go now.
if you're lucky.
Yeah, I wish I could leave now. Yet
So
again,
Dave,
I let someone tie me up that I shouldn't have.
yeah, oh no, that's a bad choice. There are people out there that you should let tie you up. It just sounds like you made a bad decision there in that
You just
particular case.
but you have to be careful with that decision. You know, every time you make it wrong, it absolutely sucks.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes you only get to make it wrong once. I mean, that's all
Yeah,
it takes. You never
yeah.
know. All
End
right,
up
well,
in his basement.
pockets. Hey, no, 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 now don't bring that back to my basement, because I've told you I've been very clear. It's storage only. All I use it for is storage. Perfectly
That's
innocent.
I'm just joking about it because I know it's not a real thing, and so we can joke about it.
That's
Because
perfectly, yeah.
I know that you.
It's safe. It's a safe subject because it's just it's purely storage.
There are people who say that you killed a maid at a Motel 6 in Boston in 2009. It's just not true. It's not true.
And I don't care how many times it gets brought up. I'll just continue to maintain that the evidence was largely circumstantial, and if a hung jury counts as an acquittal in Canada, so
Yeah.
the facts speak for themselves as far as I'm concerned.
And they never found a body. They don't even know that it actually. She could be living in the Bahamas. You don't know.
Thank you for mentioning that, Chris. I appreciate having your support on this. It's been a very divisive subject here at Rec Poker, but you're obviously a man of the world, and you understand how these things work.
Yeah. Some you just there's false accusations of murder happen all the time.
Oh God, it's getting late. It must be getting late over here. You're in Pacific time. What's your excuse? I don't see.
I'm not in Pacific time. I am in Mountain time with no daylight savings time.
No, that sounds a lot like Pacific time.
They're very similar. The clocks read the same.
Right, but it's technically
different.
different. We should respect the difference between Pacific time and Mountain time on not daylight savings time.
Yeah, the spirit of the thing is different because daylight savings time is stupid and everyone hates
stupid. And no one would argue with that point.
Yeah, it's stupid and everyone hates it. In fact, that's my plan when I run for president. I'm just going to campaign almost exclusively on getting rid of daylight savings time. That'll be my
smart. That's smart.
I mean, that's better than either of the candidates we've had to choose from in years. People will be fired up. It'll be a landslide.
Well, it's getting interesting here. Binkley's picked up, or he's got the straight draw. Charles has trips and puts in just a pile of chips.
There.
Yeah.
Gotta fold. Good bet by Charles there.
And Eric Anderson says he tried another clown with the chips. I'm just going to go check out the link here. And if you're over on the Discord channel, you go to rec.poker/Discord, you can get an invitation to join our Discord channel. That is terrifying, Eric. That is a terrifying amateur clown with chips for eyes. And
Excellent.
he's even got the Rec Poker font over it. So I'm going to quote Taylor Moss. Thanks, I hate it. That is terrifying, Eric. Thank you very much for that. Now I'll never sleep again. Yeah, Evil Roy also chipping in. Yeah, I call my basement the Bermuda Triangle, actually, Dave. The Bahamas is a popular choice, but it's more about the place that nothing can escape from. Luggage, and like bins of things, of course, again.
Because that's what the Bermuda Triangle is famous for, is disappearing luggage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, planes and boats with luggage that disappear and are never seen from again. It's a tragedy.
Never go in the basement of a person who seems to value luggage more than human lives.
I mean, it depends on the luggage and the human. Don't tell me you don't agree.
You know, that's true. I can think of some humans and some where that scale would change.
It's a spectrum. So many things are on a spectrum that we don't appreciate.
Had beat on me in Reno about 14 years ago that I would certainly trade his life for a nice set of luggage.
You can tell us all about it. I was gonna say there's a story there. Yeah. Join us for our Grolsch Fest in Las Vegas this June, and maybe you can get some details from Chris Wallace about the sub luggage human experience.
If you bring a bunch of Grolsch and make a Grolsch Fest sign, I will learn some Foo Fighters songs to play for you. Oh,
okay. Now we're talking.
We'll call it the Dave Grolsch Fest.
I love that. That's like cross promotional material written all over it already. Get them involved.
Need to get. Let's see if we can get them to show up and play the
Yeah,
party.
give him a call.
Shouldn't
Give
be
him
a
a
problem.
call. You're pretty plugged in. You're pretty plugged into the scene. Eric Anderson says he would risk a trip to Jim's basement for $1 million Canadian. Brave man, brave man, Eric. Given all the calumnies and lies that have been told about my basement, it's a perfectly friendly and hospitable place.
I can't. I feel like this pot's just not going to be as big as I think it should be. Again, yeah, there it is. I keep
Yeah, wow, yeah, 2 pair versus the straight.
much bigger than they are.
You expect them to be shoveling those chips in.
Yeah, because that's what a fish like me would be doing. Because I'm not very good at poker, and I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Yes. Oh, exactly. That's the best line. That is the best line. Well, I know Chris Jones is rooting for Binkley here. He's got pocket fives versus Charles's ace 3 suited. Charles goes for again a really small 3-bet. There's something about these 3-bet sizings from these out of position players that
I don't like it.
Now, do you think is that a calling hand, or is it just that the sizing should be bigger for the 3-bet players?
Given these stacks and the blinds, it would be a call for me.
Yeah,
have to see a flop with this hand, but if you're gonna play it like you mean it, then bigger 3-bet or just pile it in.
Mm-hmm.
Probably too many big blinds to. I mean, you could. It certainly is a a profitable, like a provable profitable shove.
Yeah.
It's just not. You just can't, calculate the value of a call versus the value of a shove easily. So I don't know if it's the most profitable thing to do. I'm sure that it's a profitable shove.
Yep.
Against a normal open range.
And Eric's getting very trappy here with 2 pair aces and eights. He's really
this is a spot where I would min raise. Speaking of the
micro,
that's
that's
that a min raise right there. It gets called so often, and it also just tilts people so much where they have to fold to it.
So it's a win-win, really.
Jack and someone bets really small, and then you min raise them on the river, and they fold, and they just they're so mad.
That's non-trivial. If you can get under someone's skin in a heads-up match, like get them off their balance, that can be valuable.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good question, Chris. How much is that a strategy when you're playing specifically heads up, when you just have one villain and you're playing every hand against them? Is there an element of kind of getting them off their game? Like, is that a valuable use of your mental resources at that time?
There are some opponents where it would be. Yeah, it's not a common thing for me to go after, but there are times when it really is. I made a video years ago playing 5100 heads up limit Omaha 8. I remember this video was so much fun. It was like 15 years ago, and I had a guy that just was playing tons of hands and was tilted out of his mind, and he was so mad, and he like didn't understand why I was playing so many hands. So he then started doing it because I was beating him, and he got in that tilt where you think like, oh, shitty hands just win, so I'm just going to play them.
Right.
And he got it. And like, that's the thing. Most people do it like 1-2. They don't usually crank that up to 50-100 to go there. It gets expensive quick. And he was just like, I mean, the chat, and this is an hour and a half of him just ranting in the chat, so angry. It was a 400 hand we played in an hour and a half. Just ranting in the chat, screaming at me, just tilted out of his head, and and then fed me, almost $4,000 in the process of like losing his mind. And I really, in that situation, it mattered. Like I did say things. If he started to, he would like calm down for a minute, and then I would say, I'm glad that you finally got over the queen 9 3 deuce. And then he would just lose his mind again. If it comes up, it's valuable, but it doesn't come up that often in the games that I play, and online in particular, you just don't see it as all that often online. But
definitely hard
in the big heads up spots that I've been in tournaments, I don't think I've ever played with anyone who I thought was going to easily tilt. I did actually. I've played heads up a couple times at the ends of like satellites or smaller tournaments, or I was against a very very recreational player who, I did want to manipulate their mindset to make them, because they were folding way too much, and I wanted to make them
Yes.
fold more and keep
Yes.
them in that mindset. And that's really important, because then you're just guaranteed to win.
Yep.
At the end of a satellite once, I won't say who it was, but I told Josh Sexton, if I lose this, I was heads up, and I said, if I lose this satellite seat, I'll never play poker again.
No.
Sometimes you just absolutely know.
Yep. Well, listen, I mean, when you know how to apply pressure, heads up, you're really putting your opponent in a difficult position there, because, like we said at the top of the show, they're not going to make hands very often. So if they're not going to be aggressive themselves and make you fold a better hand, sometimes it's kind of only a matter of time, unless they just get smacked with the deck.
I would say in many heads up matches, this might be the end of it, but in this one, I don't think so.
Yeah, we've got trip jacks versus top pair queens.
We're just going to play a tiny little pot here.
Yeah, it's amazing. These two are really, they're small balling throughout this entire match. I think that's they have that in common. I think they both, because it takes two to small ball, right? Otherwise, you start seeing people raising and making bigger bets. And
expression makes me uncomfortable.
Fair enough. But yeah, both these players seem to be playing this very disciplined approach to kind of grinding out the.
I think that should be on the back of the amateur clown shirt.
It takes two to play small ball.
It takes two to small ball.
So Charles has the chip lead here. It's a little more than 2-1. He's opening up to two big blinds on the button here. We're in the 61-20 level. So there's still plenty of room to play here. But the blinds are going up. Ace King versus King Jack. This is the kind of spot that you might see some chips get in, and they do decide pre-flop who's the boss and let it go there.
Yeah, tournaments typically end. The average tournament will end when there are 40 to 50 big blinds in play, but they start to end when there are 80 big blinds in play. And as soon as you hit 80 big blinds in play, any hand could be the last one. And then they typically end between 40 and 50. So if you've got a blind level that's 40 big blinds, as soon as it hits that level, a tournament director can start racking up chips and getting ready to go, because we know, the average stack is now 20 big blinds, and we're not going to last long here.
And that kind of, you can kind of count on that frequency in the long run when it comes to a lot of the stuff. Once you get down to that stack size, there's just a certain proportion of the hands that could be dealt are going to end up being in a high chip exchange situation.
Yeah. That's a very technical description, a high chip exchange situation.
Thank you. I blame Grolsch for that one. That one just came to me naturally.
It's make that a thing on the forums. It'll become HCES as an abbreviation.
Chip exchange.
Spread it to the nerds at 2+2 and let them tangle with it.
I love that idea. Yeah.
Situation. Range.
There you go. If you're having fun tonight,
here we
folks,
go.
I want to.
Here
we go.
Exchange.
We've got a high chip exchange situation here, and Eric is going to get the best of it. Still still under the chip lead, but a lot of game left to be played here. A lot of chicken left on that bone, as my dad would say. And he's got the best of it on this particular hand as well.
Short stacks are surviving throughout these tournaments a long time. I haven't seen
they've been winning the
none of the
flips.
3 have ended early. None of the 4 have ended early.
In fact, I think I can say this is one of the longest series of matches we've had here in MaREC Madness. It's after midnight on the East Coast here. Just speaks to the caliber of the play, that these folks aren't making huge mistakes, and it's a disciplined game getting played here at every level.
I know that sometimes it feels like it's kind of my job to be critical when I'm watching these things or to explain strategy stuff, but I mean, this is certainly better play than I expected from a site called Rec Poker. this is this is pretty strong play. Nobody's getting out of hand. Nobody's bluffing off their chips with nothing. Like people are, just calling with a two pair. That's a hand you could just call with. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's a lot of solid play happening here. So while I'm always looking for mistakes, that's kind of my job. I go from
Yeah.
whether it's the best players in the world to, a random guy who just started playing. My job is to find mistakes and help fix them. So, you know,
Well, that's how we learn, right? No one ever learned from playing perfect and getting just positive feedback. You got to
yeah,
examine those errors and the low-hanging fruit. And
yeah,
it's and I do like to point out, we are rec poker, we're recreational poker players. But that just means that the success that we've had in our lives have been in other fields. So we don't play professionally. It doesn't mean that we're not serious players. Doesn't mean that we're not, accomplished players, that we don't take it seriously. We play for fun, but it's more fun when you win. So
absolutely.
we all try and get better together. And I will say there are some real killers here in the rec poker community. I'm proud to be a part of them. But one of the things that makes us great is we have this whole range of experience, range of skill players, and we get to all kind of learn together, help each other learn. That's what makes rec poker great.
I'm trying to become one of you. I'm gradually
I
working
know.
out of playing poker for a living. I'll
We're
be a poker player soon. Then I will really need the amateur clown T-shirt.
yeah, that's right. Well, we'll talk to the cool Eric Anderson and make sure that yours is the first off the presses.
I think you should take bids from also the MSPT Eric Anderson and the Lane Eric Anderson, and just see,
That's true. We're equal
a no bid
opportunity.
job. Like let everybody apply.
Well, Charles just keeps getting he's getting the cards, he's got the chips. Eric Binkley Gin is going to have to make a move here sometime soon, as he's getting down to about 11 or 12 big blinds. Picks up second pair. Charles has a open-ended straight draw, so he's getting a good price on a call here. But that's going to seal it up for Eric. Can he get paid from ace high? Probably not at that sizing. But he's targeting a pair.
There are a bunch of draws that miss. Some people, I mean, Charles hasn't been calling these, but they're you could justify a call here. A bunch of draws
Yep.
missed.
Yep. Ace high is a pretty strong hand here. So a little bit of breathing room for Binkley.
I know exactly what you're saying with recreational not equating to bad at poker.
Yeah, it used to be the case, but
I'm essentially a recreational photographer. I've made a little bit of money doing it, but the best photographers I know don't do it for a living. The guys that do it for a living are shooting weddings every weekend. The really great ones are, and when I was a musician, it was the same way. Where I worked at music stores, and the best musicians I ever heard never played for a living. That's if you play for a living, you're playing the same dumb song all the time. You get tired of doing it, and um, oh, we got an all in, and
oh, that's it. And
that's the end of it.
it could have
The ace
gone
seven
either
of
way
clubs
there. Ace seven versus King Queen, but Charles
betrayed by
Allen
the ace
did
seven
come
of
away
clubs.
with it. Yep, betrayed by the ace seven of clubs. That's right. So there you have it, folks. This has been quite the night. I am so excited to have been in the booth here with Chris Fox Wallace. We had some great
I had
time.
more fun than you did. It was great.
I will challenge that claim, but we'll take it. We'll duke it out in person when I come down there in June. This was a real pleasure, Chris. Thank you for your time tonight and for your analysis for our Rec Poker members. I think a lot of people learned a lot, and we had a really good time chatting with you tonight. I'll
Glad to be
reinforce. I'll
here.
reinforce to folks if they want to follow along with Chris, they can go to @FoxPokerFox on Twitter. Start a Short Stack Ninja, a fantastic read, a great, and also for recreational players, I think that's one area where we can really pick up some skills, because I think it's easy to kind of get overwhelmed or to feel daunted when we have a short stack in tournaments, and kind of react poorly to those circumstances. But I know from going through that book study that you pointed out a lot of great strategies for folks, and I encourage folks to check that out. And if you want to get more involved in mixed games, try getting started with horse poker. Chris, what else, if people want to get more Fox Wallace in their lives, what's the best way for them to reach out to you, or what's the best way for them to sort of get more involved with what you've got going on?
If people want lessons, which is a lot of what I do, blindstraddle@gmail.com.
Yep,
And
fantastic.
I have a bunch of short video series and then a 22 video series over Red Chip Poker. I know you guys have a link to Red Chip right from
Yeah, we
Rec
do.
Poker. So
Yeah.
you can in the Learn tab, and we can go to Red Chip that way and see the course. It's called Tournament Core 2.0, and it's a 22 video course where I play through a tournament that I created. I built every hand history to show how to play against different players with different stack sizes. So,
Oh, nice.
there's a raise. It will be, okay, here's a raise from Old Man Coffee, 2 players fold, and a call from a backpack, and then a couple more players fold. And now we have 6, 7 of spades in this small blind, and the stacks are this depth. What do we do here? So that it's a real playing situations. It was intended to be a guide to playing 1Ks at the World Series. That's what it's pointed at.
Nice.
But the information. And so at one point in the tournament, I have 200 big blinds, and at one point in the tournament, I have 8 big blinds, and I made myself go up and down so that I could show how to play lots of different stack sizes against different players. I think it's a great, and I get paid nothing for more people watching it. I got paid for doing it already. I'm just typing it up because it's actually really good and people respond really well to it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and if folks want to get,
I think I'll probably, I think I'll probably be around Rec Poker at some point.
Yeah, we're overdue, man. We got to do some more work together. There's this perfect overlap between what we're trying to do. So, keep your eyes peeled, folks. You might see more of Chris Fox Wallace around the water cooler here over Rec Poker, and do go to rec.poker/resources, and you can find links to Red Chip Poker, Chris's videos there, and a bunch of other amazing content and trading material to take your game to the next level. So, I want to thank Kim Kilroy, Chris Jones, Michael Babker, Kathy Chang, Joe Coolis, Keith Brandt, Charles Allen, Eric Jin, Taylor Moss. I cannot express enough the efforts that he goes to make this event great each year, and all the other stuff he does to make Rec Poker as fantastic as it is. If you're enjoying this streaming on Thursday nights, we're going to be doing this again for the next 2 weeks. Join me next week where we'll be commentating with Rob Gardner. And after MaREC Madness, you can catch Taylor every Wednesday night throughout the year, streaming in our home game. He also puts a fun tournament schedule together. There's free prizes there every week. You can check that out right here at twitch.tv/recpoker. But most of all, thanks for you, our audience, for sticking around. We got some fantastic stuff in the chat here. I'm going to check in with producer Taylor Moss and see if we have a 10 of clubs card to give away. I don't think we did. Sounds like it didn't come up this week. So I blame Fox for that. Fox just didn't choose the right card.
I did it on purpose.
I'm a bad person. It's on purpose. Chris is saying, get me out of here already. Let's all right. Well, one more time, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome. And
thank you, Jim. This was really fun.
It was, wasn't it? We had a good time, right? It only took 3 or 4 grosh. We'll put that to shame when we get together in Vegas. Hopefully.
That sounds good.
All right. Well, good night, everybody. Thanks for all your help and thanks for all your fun. And keep having fun out there on the poker table. And we'll see you all again sometime real soon. All right. Take care.